Thank you. We'll call tonight's Housing, Urban Development, and Zoning Committee meeting to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Cone, Alderwoman Schweitzer, Alderwoman Keys, Vice Chair Saunier, Alderman Browning, Alderman Aldridge,
Present.
Chair Clark Hubbard,
Here.
Alderman Cone, Alderwoman Schweitzer, Alderwoman Keys, Vice Chair Saunier, Alderman Browning. We have two present.
Thank you. It's important to note that since we are not taking any votes this evening, quorum is not necessary. So the fact that we are not at quorum does not hinder at any all the weight and the value in this committee hearing this evening. This committee hearing was called in a sense of urgency about the Right to Counsel program here in the city of St. Louis, which we know was legislated 2 years ago. And that was a baton that was picked up prior to that from our former colleague of ours, Ms. former Alderman Christina Ingracia. And in watching and looking at those old hearings and committee meetings today, I'm even more not just fired up, but heartbroken at where we are in this program today. And so this is our responsibility as Alder people, not to only legislate, but then to follow through and to advocate and to be a voice for the constituents who we know needed and still need now more than ever programming like this. Want to be remembered, for myself, for what we did for our most vulnerable and for the least of these. And what's unfortunate is that sometimes people are in positions that don't have that same heart and mind. And even more unfortunate, they are in positions to make things happen or not happen, to form implementation or to cause obstruction. And so what we are here for today and creating and hold this space is to hopefully hear from not only the public first, but hear from our departments on where the challenges may be, where we can help to try to course correct and make things right, or maybe redirect, or whatever we can do to get this program in place, because we know programs like this, the trickle-down effect of having something in place as it relates to mental health, as it relates to our own house, as it relates to housing and the right that it is, makes all the difference in the world. And so with that, I am going to call up our first speakers from Arch City Defenders. I know if you are here and you are part of the core group that wants to speak, please make sure you signed up, because I'm going to swear everybody in at the same time. And then if you are here, as I heard some of the testimonies down in your rally before, and something moves you and you still feel the need to speak, again, this is our responsibility to take the time to listen to you all, and then do what we can to advocate for you all. So please don't hesitate, either here in the room or online, to sign up or raise your hand so that you can speak. So everyone in the room now that has signed up to speak, can you please raise your right hand? You swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth? All right, we'll begin. Yes, or the core group. If it's someone else that wants to represent that group, that's fine, but I did want to intentionally hear from the people and the public before we respond. And if that is, we can go ahead and start with the speaker list if that works better.
So we're going to start with August Kelly. You have 3 minutes. Just turn the mic on.
And you could just first start out by speaking your name and the neighborhood you live in.
Sure. My name is August Kelly, and I live in Tower Grove. Cool. Just want to express appreciation for the organizers and the tenants who have come here to talk about their experiences. I'm a social worker in St. Louis at Places for People. I also do unhoused outreach. And I guess with where things stand, it felt like, I'm not sure the exact timeline, but it felt like about a year ago when this was passed, I felt like really, really hopeful because there are just hundreds of people on the eviction docket who just, if they decide to show up, which oftentimes it feels like it won't even really matter if they do or not because the way that the court systems are set up, then it's very confusing for people, how it's basically impossible for someone to represent themselves. And specifically in this context, it's going to go really bad for them. And then we all know it's really difficult to regain housing once you've lost it. I guess I was just really demoralized when this was passed but not implemented. And it just made it feel like, even if something, legislation was popularly passed, then it wouldn't have any effect. And I don't think that that's what anyone wants. And I'm looking forward to seeing the ways that it's actually implemented. And I really appreciate all of the organizers for keeping it on point.
Our next speaker is Emily Seipel, Ward 9.
Can you hear me okay with the mask? Okay. My name's Emily Seipel, and I am a resident in Ward 9. I'm coming out in support of this program for many reasons, but something kind of close to my experience recently was working on a grant program for people who were displaced by the May 16th tornado. That looked a lot of different ways, but one story that really kind of stood out to me, talked to a gentleman on the phone who we were trying to get his application through, and he was living in kind of a group housing situation where there's 5 people in a home and each of them have a lease for a room and then share access to common spaces. And their home, from aerial footage that you can see kind of before and after, the back of the home appeared to be gone, a large part of the roof gone, and people were still living there. And while I was talking to him, he said that the owner, since the tornado, had changed to a new owner. And I don't really understand how this is possible, but the new owner didn't realize that people were living there. And so he and his kind of fellow roommates were really scared because they couldn't actually pay their rent. And so I just think, that kind of story, it just really shows that some people, this one building to them is truly their shelter in the storm. It's their home, it's where they eat, it's where they rest, it's where they kind of go about their day. And to someone else, it's a property that's an investment or an income, and that is a huge power dynamic. And so we as a city need to stack the deck against that power dynamic, and I think the Right to Counsel program is an amazing opportunity to do that. There's so many unique situations, and so people who are skilled and understand the court system, understand housing law, can walk alongside people who are, just trying to go about their day and be a good neighbor in our city. So I'm asking for it to be fully funded and for the program to be protected and for this to be just a key part of what it means to be a renter in St. Louis. So thank you.
We have Chloe Brewer online. If you could turn on your camera and unmute your mic.
Good evening. My name is Chloe Brewer, and I'm a former resident of the DeVoliver Place neighborhood in the city of St. Louis's 10th Ward. I'm here today to support the full and sustainable funding of the Right to Counsel program. On May 16th, 2025, I was directly impacted by the EF3 tornado that devastated our city. My apartment in the 10th ward was in the path of the tornado, and upon its impact, the walls and windows of my unit were ripped from the building while I was still inside, and my apartment and everything in it was covered with debris, and I was effectively displaced from my home because of its sudden and uninhabitable nature. Aside from my building, the tornado destroyed more than 5,000 buildings and displaced thousands of families. Despite having gaping holes in my apartment and no adequate shelter, my property management was adamant that I shouldn't be released from the terms of my lease. They were going to make me pay rent for the month of June, only 2 weeks after the tornado, despite having no place to live. If I hadn't paid, I would have faced eviction. The only reason that didn't happen to me is because I had a personal connection to an attorney who was willing to advocate for me without payment. But if not for that, I wouldn't have been able to afford a lawyer because I'm currently a graduate student with no external financial support. Considering also that the Right to Counsel program has been given less than 20% of the originally proposed budget, I likely wouldn't have been able to find support there either, despite the city's promise that all renters in St. Louis have a right to legal counsel in eviction cases. I was fortunate to have a safe and immediate place to stay as I recovered from the tornado and I found a new residence, but others in our city have not been so lucky. Their homes are destroyed, rents are rising, and winter is coming quickly. Right to Counsel is about providing justice and resources to tornado victims like me and to every renter. It's an investment in our neighborhoods, and the city should want to keep families in their homes, not spend millions more trying to reach them with emergency services once they're living on the streets. Every city with a functional Right to Counsel program, including our friends across the state in Kansas City, have saved money because investing in the rights of renters and families creates stronger, safer, and richer cities. So the time to act is now to prevent further harm. And today I am urgently requesting the immediate and full funding of the Right to Counsel program at the levels promised in the 2023 bill. So $2.5 million this year now and a dedicated long-term funding source now. I urge the Board of Aldermen to consider my experience and the experience of thousands of St. Louisans who have been impacted by circumstances out of their control, leaving them displaced, unhoused, or facing eviction. All St. Louisans deserve safety, and we deserve for our city's government to utilize its funds to ensure such safety is guaranteed. Thank you.
Ms. Rucker?
Hi, my name is Aviana Rucker, and I'm originally from North County, but I was relocated to South City, St. Louis. I'm here because I lived through exactly the kind of situation this legislation is meant to prevent, and strongly support fully funding the Right to Counsel program. Not long ago, I was facing eviction during a time when my health was in serious decline. I knew I was fighting for a battle that could have been life or death. In moments like that, stability isn't optional. It's what keeps you alive. I needed a safe, steady place to recover, not another crisis to add on to what I was already dealing with. When my case began, I didn't have a lawyer. I wasn't even referred to one. As a matter of fact, I was still paying in good faith. And originally, my case was assigned to the assistant manager who was surprisingly removed during the time my eviction was served. I walked into a system completely unprepared and overwhelmed while trying to keep myself healthy at the same time. Here's the truth. It shouldn't take for the damage to already be done for legal counsel to be provided. Thank God, once I did my own research looking for rental assistance, I was able to find the Orange City Defenders. St. Louis did the right thing by passing the Right to Counsel ordinance, but without fully funding it, it can't do anything to help the people who really need it. People lose homes, children lose their stability, parents lose their mental capacity to stay sane. People with serious health challenges like I had COVID, flu, and was in hypertensive crisis. I could have died that day, but I'm still here, fighting for something that everybody should be fighting for. I'm asking you today, fully fund this program, make it legal, protect people early, and make it accessible for all. Don't hide it. Give tenants a real chance to defend their homes before they end up in a crisis similar to mine. Because for many of us, housing isn't just a place to stay. It's a foundation for your health, your safety, and your dignity. Thank you for your time.
Luke Mon. Luke Mon.
Good evening. Thank you all for being here tonight. My name is Luke, and I am a resident of the 3rd Ward. I am here today in solidarity with my neighbors to support sustained funding for the housing eviction law program. Between 2017 and 2024, 46,931 renters had an eviction case filed against them, and more than 6,300 evictions have occurred this past year alone. As some of you might remember from the National Coalition for a Right to Civic Council, tenants fare far better with full representation. To date, this program has saved tenants $299,221 collectively. But this program has not been funded at the levels set out in the ordinance. Only $685,000, that's less than 20% of the proposed budget. And the program has not met its target caseload, providing full representation to 343 clients, far below the target of 1,125. I want you to increase funding for the right to counsel to $2.5 million per year so that the program is functional and it meets the needs of our neighbors who are facing eviction. I also read the article in St. Louis Public Radio today, and I do support President Green's proposal to resume collecting Prop S funds, but whatever we can do to make this program permanent. Thank you.
Misha Hurst.
My name is Misha Hurst, and I am a former resident of downtown. So in a nutshell, by the grace of God, I was one of the success stories through the Right to Counsel. Long story short, I was drugged back and forth to court for backdated rent and a slew of illegal fees that the Right to Counsel was able to expose in court. Without them, I would have had to pay thousands of dollars I didn't legally owe. And because of them, I was able to collect 3 times as much in a settlement through the legal counsel. The funding of the Right to Counsel program is important because it gives tenants a chance at a fair fight in court and potentially exposes the underbelly of the unfair practices in the leasing companies in our city. Thank you.
Jamie Mitchell.
Thank you. My name is Jamila. I'm in the 12th Ward. As you all know, the tornado happened. Okay, cool. But what are we gonna do now? Instead of, oh my goodness. Okay, I had a whole thing that I was gonna say, but that's not even where like Spirit is leading me. Spirit is basically telling me, I am tired of being neglected. I'm tired of feeling like it's my fault. I'm tired of always having to ask for help and I don't get it. Or I'm steady getting the runaround, but I still have to live life and I'm still, supposed to show up. But where's my help? It's almost at this point, like, where do we sign? Because we shouldn't keep doing this. We shouldn't have to go through this system that basically, it's almost like it's designed for us to fail. When you go to these courtrooms, it's almost like an auction block. You have the elderly there, and I'm talking about they know absolutely nothing of what's going on. You have families with their children, and I'm talking about the panic in these little kids' eyes, like, Mommy, are we going home when we leave here? And it's not fair, especially when this could just be avoided with just a simple conversation with the Right to Counsel stepping in for our renters. Something that I believe should be implemented, just being a renter, this should be a given. It's people on the streets. And it's cold outside. I'm talking about it's babies. And they are getting evicted over 1 month's rent, or because they're either being too loud. I mean, it's not even the evictions, the illegal evictions are what's crazy. But we can't catch them because we wouldn't know. The right to counsel knows. The people in our community, like these lawyers, I mean, God, these are angels, God sent. And when I know, because they have helped me. I have 5 children. And they recently lost their father. I have MS. I am losing the vision in my left eye. And I'm a single mom. Like I'm a single mom, but I'm like literally like scared, not just for my kids, but my neighbors' kids. At this point, this is just abuse. Because I feel like housing is a right. And it's like not you per se, but I feel like my rights are not being respected. And so at this point, it's like, what do I do? Like, really, what do I do? And there's so many other people that are just like, they don't even know what to do. But you have like the right to counsel literally saves people's lives, keeps families together, keeps the mental capacity. I'm talking about people are literally, I know I've lost it a few times, but I couldn't have done it without Will. I couldn't have done it without my community. I couldn't have done it without that push, like you have a voice, not just for you, but it's other people. And it's literally, this is not fair. It's
Ms.
not
Mitchell,
fair.
that's your time.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Michael Higgins.
Good evening. My name is Michael Higgins, and I'm a resident of the 7th Ward. 3 months ago, I moved to St. Louis to attend a graduate-level social work program at Washington University. During this time, my renting experience has been drastically different than areas which I previously lived. I don't know if you know, but the Missouri tenant law is much less than a scrap of piece of paper that says, hey, you signed a contract, that's it. For the first 2 months of my lease this fall, I sat with my hands tied as my shower water poured down into my neighbors below me. So every time I took a shower, I was basically dumping waste onto them. The neighbor down the hall from me, he had sewage leaking from his roof. And we couldn't do anything because we couldn't afford to go to court with our landlord. So we had to wait until they just decided, you know what, maybe we should do what we're legally owed to because we signed the contract with them. And now I must consider myself lucky hearing everyone talk today about, unlike me, living in unlivable conditions. They are literally being evicted from their homes and put on the streets. There are over 5,000 renters evicted in St. Louis every year, many with children and family who have no right to defend themselves against wrongful eviction beyond the right to counsel program, which is currently underfunded. Furthermore, the right to counsel program has worked. In Kansas City, the right to counsel program has successfully defended 82% of residents from 2,000 cases of wrongful eviction in the last 18 months. At an average household size, that equates to 4,100 people, nearly the same amount of people as my entire neighborhood in Gravois Park. That is 4,100 people who do not need additional government housing assistance because they just lost their home. That is 4,100 who are able to keep working because they don't need to take time off to find a new place to live. That is 4,100 people who are able to rightfully keep their lives. So why do we not properly fund our right to counsel program here? As far as I'm concerned, there isn't a justifiable answer. I want you to increase funding for the right to counsel program to its rightful $2.5 million per year so that the program is functional and meets the needs of residents who are facing evictions and have the right to legal defense in this city. Thank you.
Stacy Crawford.
Hello, I have my whole speech that I said out there, but I want to make sure that I touch some bases on some things that's really important to me. So I too faced eviction in 2019, 2020. I was staying in the Delmar Loop Apartments, and I had a senior, single mother raising a child or whatever, didn't want to uproot her. They had changed companies or whatever, they sold the building and let us know. So basically, started giving out evictions or whatever. Contacted Matthew Chase, which was the attorney that was representing the building at that time. And to make a long story short, he didn't do what he said he was to do. And it was not only myself, it was a slew of people, the entire building, that he did that. So when I went to court, we had made arrangements, but they put on additional monies that was not owed, and it was contingent if I decided to stay, but they were not doing what needed to be done in the property. So I agreed to it, but it was contingent. Well, that was not discussed, like he said that it was going to be discussed. So now I have an eviction on my record. It's been 5 years that I've been fighting to get this eviction off. It's been 5 years of not being able to be in a stable, apartment, living conditions or whatever, and you just have to take the bare minimum when you're doing it. You're dealing with slumlords, and I'm just so tired of seeing these attorneys like Matthew Chase. And when you go to court without a attorney, you basically don't have a voice. You basically don't have a voice, so your whole world can be just interrupted within seconds. And I say that to say this because not only was I facing it, but I deal with people every day that face it. I am also on the board of the Crisis Nursery, the chairman of the board of the Crisis Nursery. So we deal with this every day. So I'm telling you, not only from my personal experience, but also from seeing the clients or whatever. But also I can tell you that it's a good outcome because when they have the right to counsel, when right to counsel is so needed, when they have that attorney, that they can turn their lives around. They just need a little help along the way. That's all, just a little help. And we can probably just end a lot of this homelessness. So it is definitely needed. It is something that that I'm going to advocate for, not only for myself, but also for the people that I help and support to serve, as well as, arch defenders or whatever. So I just think that it's really needed, and I think that people really need to just pay attention because it's around us. You can't be oblivious to it because when you walk outside of this courtroom, you're going to see it on every street corner. So that's what I wanted to add.
Art Clemens.
Yes, my name is Art Clemens. I have been living in the St. Louis area for about 30 years. I want you to know that there's been twice that I've been locked out of my apartment when the rent was paid. And I managed to represent myself and get it straightened out, but I didn't get the kind of money that I should have if I would have had an attorney. And but I've never been evicted. Anyway, I feel that, most people won't be able to handle it if they were to get locked out or evicted. They don't have an attorney, so this program is really important. I'd also like to say that I lived for 7 years in downtown St. Louis, and I brought a pro se lawsuit against the Gentry's Landing. And they were pulling a scheme. Is a short notice scheme. What they do is they send you a notice that says you got 3 or 4 days to decide whether you want to stay here because we're going to raise the rent. So then you could stay at the same price for 30 days, but if you didn't sign the paper they gave you, then you had to leave. So there's no possible way you could find a new place to live within 3 or 4 days. It couldn't be done. That's basically extortion and theft by coercion. And the judge in the case ended up ruling that there was that a crime is not a tort. Anyway, I know I don't have much time to present this thing to you, so I'm going to send an article I wrote about it to your email that I got, so you can understand it a little better. Thank you much.
Thank you so much. That is, please note that if you don't feel comfortable speaking for whatever reason or that you want to share, that will be absolutely share with all of us and captured for this meeting in the drive, it can be emailed to us.
Lee Camp.
Good evening, everyone. I'm actually an attorney that's here. I think it would be more powerful to hear from everyone else before myself, so I'd ask that I be called back at the end for testimony. Thank you.
Rosalind Guy.
Good evening. I respect all of y'all, like I said. And I'm so grateful to be here.
Ms. Guy, can you speak inside the mic?
Okay. Here I am. I'm here. Okay. I'm so grateful that Attorney Baran told me about this. And I'm so happy to see Attorney Dan McGuire. I worked with him when I was at the Housing Authority. And we had 42 resident councils. And now I understand they only have 5. So I think people are being beat down. But I'm here, fresh out of court, as of this morning, 11 o'clock. Attorney Baran represented me. Prior to him, in another unlawful detainer action, Attorney Susan Alverson represented me. And prior to that, the Lord got me out of it, okay? But something needs to be done to watch these slumlords, because they will put issues on us and get away with not providing safe and sanitary housing. I was told they were not going to renew my lease because I reported I had mold and mildew in my apartment. I didn't know why I was getting sick. And they hold activities in the basement. When I went downstairs, the entire stairwell was crumbling from mold and mildew. I was writing down a lot, but the first time they were evicting me, it was because I reported I didn't have hot water for over 10 months, for over 9 months, almost 10 months. I mean, it's hurtful because I've had a chance to work on the inside when I worked for BJC in the Department of Mental Health as their Shelter Plus Care Coordinator for the Eastern Region of Missouri. I housed over 270 clients. I never had clients to come back and tell me things were happening to them like I'm experiencing, okay? I worked at the Housing Authority, and we work to uplift our residents. And Webster School Senior Apartments, located at 2127 North 11th Street in Old North St. Louis, is basically trying to use me as an example because I start organizing the residents. We don't have any of the amenities that they promised us. Our door, front door, entry door has stayed open for months at a time without any security. It's like you're punished if you speak out. Somebody needs to do something. Nobody's enforcing the bill that y'all just passed recently about mold and mildew.
Ms. Guy, that's your time.
Thank you.
Rachel Hurtado. Rachel.
Good evening. My name is Rachel Hurtado. I live in the 7th Ward, and I'm also a renter. I want to talk about a couple things with regard to Right to Counsel, but first I just want to give some gratitude to our chair here tonight for calling this hearing. Really grateful that the alders that are here understand this issue is important enough for y'all to be here in person. We're extremely grateful for you because you don't have to be here. Well, you kind of do, but you didn't have to, especially in the evening. I also just want to say, highlight that the majority of the folks who you're hearing from tonight are not professional employed organizers. They are everyday people. They are tenants, working class renters, and people who are your constituents. And I'm so incredibly proud to be in community with these folks. Okay, I want to cover a couple of things really quick. Section 7, of the ordinance, the Right to Counsel ordinance, says that the coordinator of the Right to Counsel program shall work with designated community groups to educate and engage tenants and others about the program, including assisting tenants to form and maintain tenant associations, refer tenants to designated community groups, and engage in other activities designed to educate, engage, or inform tenants about their rights. This program has been up and running for over a year. I am a tenant organizer, and I know for a fact that myself, the coalition of tenant organizers that are sitting here in this room with me tonight, have not heard anything, received any communication from the coordinator whose full-time job is to enforce this ordinance. So I have a lot of questions about where that person is, what they have been doing with that full-time job, because we know that the tenant organizations that exist in St. Louis City have not heard from that person. I also want to talk a little bit about the funding for the program. It has been a year, and we know that there are elected officials who continue to say that Prop S is going to fund the Right to Counsel program. I want to impress upon y'all the urgency about this. If we continue to lean on the Prop S funding, we don't even know how much that fund is going to generate, right? Because it's been tied up, and it's really just kicking the can down the road. You heard from folks in the room tonight who have experienced evictions. People who are impacted by the tornado. People are getting evicted now. Folks cannot wait any longer. We cannot wait another year for us to understand how the short-term rental tax is going to impact the Right to Counsel program. And we know the baby's being split already, right? Half of that money is going to go to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Some of it's going to go to the Impacted Tenants Fund. Some of it might go to Right to Counsel and other programs. That is not going to be enough money. Right to Counsel needs $2.5 million a year minimum, according to the ordinance, to be able to serve the number of tenants that it is supposed to serve. And that's not even going to touch the number of evictions that St. Louis City sees every year. Renters need other options right now in the city fast. This is extremely urgent, and there are options, right? The money, the Rams money is being, debated as we speak. I know that y'all are working on that. Thank you. The police budget also is $157 million, and we know that if the police said that they had an urgent issue dealing with crime in the city, there wouldn't be a 2-year waiting period, right, to figure out if the taxes were going to fund that. We know that renters need this money now, so please, I urge y'all to work quickly to find money, fund this program before the budget season comes around, and then when budget season comes around, make sure it has a permanent line item in the city budget so that St. Louis renters have the right to eviction defense enforced. Thank you.
Damon Starks.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Damon. I am the Housing Justice Organizer at Action St. Louis, and also I live in the 11th Ward under the Lord Keys. I have written a speech today, but we hear what's going on. 2 years Right to Counsel has been funded. 2 years has been passed, but not fully funded. There's 2 years of not being fully funded, and yet people want results. All I got to say, if you do not put in 100% on anything, whatever that is, and expect results, is not going to happen. I don't care what it is. It's not going to happen. So we need $2.5 million each year. That could come out of the city budget. City budget, what? We get $1.4 billion a year. Somehow we can probably defund some of that police money too, because they ain't getting nothing anyway. Let me tell you something. We have 5,000 evictions each year in this city, 5,000. The tornado just happened. What do y'all think that's going to do for this homeless population? We have to really think about that. It's basically wintertime here. Our winters get extremely cold. Our summers get extremely hot. We know that. That's the point of living in the Midwest. We have got to do something to get Right to Counsel funded while we still fighting this fight when we fought it 2 years ago. Tired of it? Y'all need to get it together. We had it together. Y'all can too. That's all I'm saying. Thank you. Thank you to the people.
Will Krieger. Will.
Good evening. My name is Will Kruger. I'm an eviction defense attorney and tenant organizer at Arch City Defenders. I'll focus my testimony on why evictions are so different than all other civil court cases in ways that make right to counsel crucial. First, the stakes are extremely high. Dozens of families were evicted today. Today, where will they sleep tonight? The homeless shelters do not have beds. It's too cold to sleep outside and it's getting colder. There is no safety net. The judge does not offer you a place to stay when they evict you. You just walk out of the courtroom homeless. Second, eviction cases are extremely fast. Most civil cases take about a year. Eviction cases take about 2 weeks as required by state law. And if you can't get off work or you can't find a babysitter the day of your case, then the judge defaults you. That means you are now homeless with no chance to present your side of the story. Third, the scales of justice are extremely unbalanced. More than 90% of landlords have an attorney, less than 3% of tenants have an attorney. All evictions pit someone who owns property against someone who rents property. Renters have rights under law, but they are not able to assert them in court without an attorney. So almost every case is a wealthy person or corporation with a lawyer against a poor person without a lawyer. Who do you think is going to win that one? Fourth, the system itself is predatory. The eviction mill that we call housing court is designed to churn through hundreds of cases a week, not to provide anything close to justice. Would you personally go to trial without an attorney, knowing that one false step meant that you would be homeless? That's why trials are very rare. Instead, landlord attorneys coerce tenants into consent judgments, court-enforced payment plans that tenants agree to because they have no other option. A tenant here tonight spoke about being in a consent judgment for 5 years. She knew it was predatory when she signed it, but her only choice besides signing was go homeless during a pandemic. And the interest keeps building faster than she can pay it down. I know for a fact she has paid far more than what she originally owed in back rent, and she is still sinking below the rising debt. I need to be very clear. This is how the eviction mill is designed to work. The system is working exactly as it is designed. Fortunately, we know how to address these problems. Right to counsel works. Dan Baran and Sean Caruso, the attorneys you will hear from tonight, work tirelessly for their clients. They make a difference in people's lives every single day. I'm proud to call them colleagues and personal friends. But 2 attorneys is not nearly enough. $700,000 is not nearly enough. And we need a functional city program that supports these attorneys. Every jurisdiction across the country that has right to counsel has reported fewer evictions, stronger communities, and long-term savings, because investing in our neighborhoods helps all the city thrive. Please fully and sustainably fund the Right to Counsel program. We demand $2.5 million this year and a dedicated, sustainable, long-term funding source that grows as the need will continue to grow. Put pressure on the executive branch to fix these operational problems. Otherwise, the eviction mill will simply keep churning. Our neighborhoods will simply continue to hollow out, and our streets will just keep filling up with unhoused people who should never have been treated this way in the first place. Thank you very much.
Jesse X's.
Hi, y'all. I'm Jessica Estes. I'm Director of Partnerships Organizing at Arch City Defenders. So this is not a resource problem. In fact, what makes this even more frustrating is the city has an abundance of resources that have yet to be deployed. Right to counsel has passed. It is the law. But what is the point of passing legislation and undercutting it by not allocating the funds required so that it can achieve the highest impact? You've heard today the vast difference in experience from community members facing eviction with counsel and without. The solution is simple. Do what's necessary. You are public servants. Serve the public and deploy the resources to fully fund Right to Counsel. Thank you.
Lee Camp. Okay. Annie Rice.
Let me see how many more people are on there, because we do want to call him up when the lawyers come up to do the presentation. So are there more people? Let me look at the list.
I have 2 more people. You want to speak? Then I have Annie Rice.
Good evening. Annie Rice. I live in the 4th Ward, and I am Senior Counsel for Policy and Partnerships at Arch City Defenders. A couple of things that I want to highlight that some of the tenants have spoken to you about tonight. Evictions are scarlet E's on people's records. They do not come off. Right? There's no time expiration that you could have been evicted 20 years ago, and that is still on your record, and you can be denied housing for the rest of your life once that is on your record. So it is critical that we prevent that from ever getting onto folks' records. We've just allocated about $18 million for services for the unhoused. That's great, but we need to spend money on the front end to prevent people from needing that money once they're out on the streets. It is far more cost effective to keep people housed than it is to provide services once they're out on the street. We've passed mold ordinances, heat ordinances, safe housing ordinances, but can't enforce them because of the lack of staff and the lack of resources in the building division, right? That's always true. It is difficult to enforce those. Do you know who can enforce them? Attorneys in court when they're representing tenants. Right? So that is the other way that the city can help get this done. So if an attorney came alongside Miss Rosalind, like she said, she's able to come back and that attorney can present to the landlord, hey, you are breaking the law, right? You are required by law to fix the mold. And that is another way that we enforce the law. So if the city has empty positions that they can't fill in the building division, or otherwise money that can't get spent and we don't have that enforcement capability, send it to Right to Counsel and let the attorneys do it, right? And that will help prevent bad landlords from turning over terrible apartments to the next person who doesn't have resources otherwise, and helps the whole city get our housing stock into a place that is livable for people to actually. Also, this is not a pilot program. This is a permanent program that is an ordinance on the city of St. Louis with required funding behind it. So thank you for treating this with the seriousness that it requires. And also, this is, I hate to say it, but this is good for landlords too, right? The more that someone is represented, they can work out a payment plan, they can work out a way to stay in that home, and then a landlord doesn't have to turn over a unit. They don't have to go find a new tenant. They can work out a system for that tenant to potentially pay and find a way through, right? So I thank you for your time. Thanks for holding this hearing tonight. Thanks for listening to all of the people who are impacted, and hopefully we can get some money in the program. Thank you.
Tracy Fantini.
Yes, thank you. Sorry I couldn't be there in person tonight, but I just want to thank the alders who are present. Most of you know me in one or more of my several capacities as an advocate. But tonight I'm here as the Executive Director of HOPE, Housing Options Provided for the Elderly. I've worked with very low income older adults facing housing issues for 18 years now. And I've worked with countless folks who were facing eviction and then who eventually did get evicted. What I can tell you is that the vast majority of the clients that I have worked with over the years have not had legal counsel or representation, and it's nearly impossible to get it from legal aid or even Arch City simply because of the demand. They're overwhelmed with more than they can handle. And our clients are the lowest of the low income. Our average income per client is about $1,100 a month. There is no way they can afford an attorney, and the deck is just stacked against them. They're at the mercy of the landlords. So if they have problems, like other renters have described already, landlords who won't fix things, or, will turn off the utilities or whatever, even if they try to take the proper course, they're still not likely to be successful in court without an attorney. And so what happens then? Well, they get evicted, they become homeless often, and then, of course, everything else falls apart when you're homeless. If you're employed, it's hard to stay employed. If you don't have transportation, if you don't have a car to live in, getting, health care, access to food, all of those things become so much more difficult and so much more expensive, frankly, to help. It's expensive to the public to try to help in that situation. And then worst of all, honestly, that eviction on their record then prevents them from becoming rehoused at a place that they can afford, because most HUD affordable housing complexes that are run by HUD or our tax credit won't take you if you have an eviction on your record. And so what happens is that just creates an impossible situation. And so I am very grateful that you all have passed the right to counsel. That is amazing. However, it is no good if we can't fund it, right? It's got to be funded. People have to be able to get lawyers. And since we have just had a tornado, and I have been involved in immediate relief, short and long-term recovery planning, what we are seeing is that our lowest income families, elders, and as well as families with children, multi-generational families, they can't afford the housing that is available.
I'm sorry,
So
Ms.
if
Fatini,
people become evicted.
that's your
Yes?
time.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I appreciate all of you. And I think most of you know how to get a hold of me if you have questions. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Z. Gorley.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Z. I wasn't planning on speaking tonight, but I just wanted to, first of all, thank all the folks who have come up to the mic and spoken now and earlier at the press rally that we held. I don't know if folks still keep a pen and paper around, but I have a couple numbers that I want to share. So Arch City Defenders in 2022 started requesting data on evictions, eviction outcomes from the state of Missouri. And what we learned in requesting those records was that between 2017 to 2024, 41,113 people had an eviction case filed against them in the city of St. Louis. The rate at which landlords and their attorneys are filing evictions against St. Louis City residents is twice the rate than it is in St. Louis County. The other numbers that I wanted to just point out, about each year, that's about 6,000 people we're talking about. So when we take this number of 41,113 people, if 3% had an attorney, which is the general estimate, that's only 1,234 people. Right to counsel is an opportunity that we already have. It's passed, it's on the table. And so the opportunity and the demand is to fully fund it, because the program talks about providing legal representation for about 1,100 people every year. However, we know that the number of people getting evicted every year is between 5,000 and 6,000. So even if we were doing this to the max, it's not enough. So I thank you for being here and taking these concerns really to heart and to action. Thank you.
Leah Fessler.
I thank you for being here, and thank you to the organizers and everyone who's spoken already. I'm a renter on the 7th Ward. I'm also a civil rights and criminal defense attorney in this city. And as I'm sure you guys are fully aware, it violates Supreme Court law to send someone to prison or keep them in jail without an attorney if they are facing a felony conviction and they are an indigent person. That has been the rule of the land for quite a long time. And yet in this city and across the country, but even more heinously in this city, given we have this ordinance, we are taking people out of their homes and throwing them on the streets during 100-degree summers and frigid cold winters with no attorney whatsoever. And I would beg you to question how different that really is from sending someone to prison or sending them to jail with absolutely no rights and absolutely no due process, as folks have clearly articulated tonight. There's frequently not even an opportunity to be heard if you don't have, for example, a babysitter, which of course you don't because you're poor. I would also beg you to contemplate the fact that I have seen countless clients of mine. Most of my clients are actively addicted to opioids, which is the leading cause of death under age 50 in this state and across the country. Countless of these individuals who can barely afford to stay alive or maintain their addiction because they're no medical support whatsoever, they immediately get evicted. And where do they go? They go to the streets. And I don't know if you've spent any time outside of, the Schnucks in downtown St. Louis where I work and personally Narcaned 3 people a couple of weeks ago because folks are overdosing and dying every single day in the streets without any intervention whatsoever. Most of those people have lost their housing and have absolutely no other alternative of where to go because they go and they try to go to homeless shelters, and those shelters are full. So I beg you to contemplate what really is the difference between sending someone to prison after they've had counsel, where at least there's a roof over their head, not to mention the fact that they're suffering in a million other ways, and putting our own citizens on the street without even a right to be heard, not to mention a right to be represented, and pretending as if simply because they exist in this city, they should have the legal expertise to represent themselves. Well, that's just ridiculous. Thank you.
Our final speaker is Lauren Fila.
Hi, I'm Lauren Filla. I do live in Maplewood. I want to thank the organizers for this. I wanted to say that housing is a human right. Humans need housing to live. I want to remind the committee that Jennifer Pendleton froze to death on the streets of this city last year, laying on a sewer grate, trying to keep warm. So with the tornado, people were evicted through no fault of their own. Even though this was passed, people couldn't access the program because it wasn't funded. If people can't access an attorney, people will become unhoused and people will die in the streets this winter. I'm sorry. I helped a woman move after the tornado. She had very little notice that she had to move. She had to abandon all of her stuff. They heated her apartment to 130 degrees because they were trying to save the building, and people were passing out on her floor already. And so she had asked for help. We went in, we moved what we could. We had to sign something to even be allowed in. We said, where are we moving? She's moving into her car. If you're evicted, it's harder to get housing. And this is instability, this is chronic stress. It's not compatible with living and with thriving. We treat housing like it's an investment that makes rich people richer and not something that people need to live. And if the elected leadership in this city doesn't prioritize making sure that Right to Counsel is fully funded, then you'll be sending a very clear message about if you value the lives of the renters in this city. Housing is a human right.
right. Thank you to everyone who stood up and used your voice this evening. We know, was it anybody's first time? Anybody? Thank you. That's good. Thank you. It absolutely makes a difference. It absolutely counts. So I know that sometimes it can be, I get nervous when I speak, but I want to make sure that you all know that we respect and are first and foremost listening, but having your real human side to this work is what's going to make the difference in our advocacy. So with that, I'm going to call up to have the Legal Services of Eastern Missouri's presentation, the attorneys Dan Buran, Sean Caruso, and Lee Camp.
Good evening. I'd like to thank you for inviting us here. I'll start real quick. My name is Daniel Buran. I'm an attorney. First off, I am the program director. Can everyone hear me? Is this better? All right. My name is Daniel Buran. I'm an attorney, first and foremost. I'm the program director of what was the Right to Counsel program. We named it internally with Legal Services, the Housing Eviction Law Program, help STL City. Thank you for inviting us here to talk about the program. I'd like to extend an invitation to you as well to come watch court. These court dockets go on 4 or 5 days a week. Sean and I are there 4 days a week at very least. These dockets last for hours. There's over 200 cases on some of these dockets. And I think it would behoove the people who are making some of the laws about this to come and see a docket. You can sit with Sean or I. We'll introduce you to the judges and show you how it works. Speaking of how it works, I just want to talk a little bit real quick about eviction law in Missouri and let you guys know what we're facing. There's really 4 types of evictions in the state of Missouri. There's numerous different ways that landlords can use to kick someone out of their home. 66% of our clients served have a rent in possession eviction lawsuit filed against them. That's usually when a tenant is behind on their rent. The landlord can file a petition in court to ask for possession of the property and any unpaid rent. They can also ask for damages, other charges, utilities, late fees, and attorney's fees. Paying off the unpaid rent will stop the case, and proving that you don't owe any rent is affirmative defense. But the only thing the landlord needs to prove in court is you owe some amount of rent. If they can prove you owe some amount of rent, not the amount they're alleging, but if they can prove some amount, you will be evicted. The judge must order an eviction. That's a rent in possession. Unlawful detainer is about 8% of our clients served, and that's usually filed when a lease expired or a lease has been terminated by the landlord for some reason, and the tenant does not move out within the time given. The landlord can ask for possession of the property and double the fair market value rent of the property for every month that the tenant is in the property after they were supposed to be out. Typically at that point, landlords have stopped accepting rent for month-to-month tenants and just want the tenant out. All they need to prove is that the lease is expired or that they terminated the lease law. On a month-to-month lease, all they need to prove to the judge is that they've given 30 days notice. There's also an expedited eviction called a 441 expedited. That's typically reserved for when the landlord is alleging criminal activity or activity on the part of the tenant that is dangerous to other tenants in the building. We have seen attorneys abuse this law and use it to get tenants out quickly because typically they can have a tenant out within 48 hours, and that's not enough time for them to call us, to get an attorney, to have any kind of due process. The 4th type is what was called the squatter's law. They were using that to get people out that they alleged didn't have leases. That was just most recently overturned by a Missouri appellate court. So they shouldn't be using that anymore, though we've still seen attempts. Timeline of an eviction. Trial can be set as early as 1 week from the summons date. That's not uncommon at all. We see it happen constantly with people that are unrepresented. The plaintiff's attorney will say, I don't want to negotiate, I want it set for trial. The judge says, I must set it for the first available trial date. That can be 1 week out. At that trial date, if they can prove their case, which is an extremely low bar, there is a 10-day grace period after the judge would order the eviction. That gives them time to file an appeal. Filing an appeal doesn't stop the eviction. It doesn't pause the eviction. Only depositing the amount that the judge ordered as a money judgment with the court will stop or pause the eviction. Otherwise, you're filing an appeal and hoping that the sheriff doesn't come out before you get your day in court. After that 10-day grace period is over, the sheriff can come out at any point after that and execute on the eviction. They're supposed to come post notice. They're supposed to come post notice about a week before they come out and do the eviction, but that is entirely dependent upon the City of St. Louis Sheriff's Office. That's their own internal policy. None of that is a law that they have to provide notice. Defending an eviction case, let's talk about that for a moment. We have to do an entire intake process when someone calls our line. We have to check for conflicts. We have to check that they qualify. After all that's done, and after an attorney actually gets involved in the case, we negotiate settlements with landlords, other attorneys, and the housing authority. We represent tenants in administrative proceedings with housing authorities or similar entities to defend against people's benefits being terminated. We represent tenants in court, including trials and first appeals. We file affirmative cases or litigation against landlords. We raise security levels on cases, making it so that future landlords don't deny housing. And we connect tenants to services and resources as necessary. I had a part in here about the bill. I think people have spoken on it enough. Some of the sponsors and co-sponsors are here, and I thank you for being here today. I will say the intention of the bill was that, in my belief, that all residents of the City of St. Louis would have the right to speak to an attorney and be represented in court if need be throughout the eviction process. Under our contract requirements with legal services signed with the city, we're on a 2-year period. We estimated we would work on 520 cases over that 2-year period. We are on track to exceed that requirement by quite a bit. That's the number of cases that we're actually entering and representing. We're also required under the contract to give out information, giving out legal info and referrals. We estimated about 500 incidences of that per year. We're about double that for this year, 1,025. That's mainly at the court table at the Civil Courts Building on the 8th floor. Legal Services staffs a court table that's out there to give information and some pro se online resources to litigants that are there without attorneys. That's, like I said, staffed 4 days a week, and that's staffed by legal service employees. Speaking of staffing, this contract allows for 2.93 full-time employees at legal services. 2.93 full-time employees. That's 2.5 full-time employees that are attorneys. That's myself, and that's my friend Sean Caruso. The other 0.5 of that is taken up by our colleagues in the housing department. They represent people in St. Louis County, Jefferson County, St. Charles County, and help out in the city as can be. We also refer cases sometimes to our volunteer attorneys or to our senior law or consumer programs. It's the only way to make up the other 0.5. 0.43 full-time employees, not even half of the person, is our paralegal and administrative support. I spoke with our senior paralegal who has over 2 decades of litigation experience and over 5 years with legal services about the program. She's the one who primarily serves as that 0.43. Her plethora of experience is typically used right now in our program to open and close cases. That's so we can keep our data tracking. That's so we can keep cases moving in and out of our program. What could we accomplish with full paralegal support? Well, motion practice support. Motions to dismiss, motions to compel, cross claims, counterclaims against those landlords, forcing their hand and giving us, leverage. Trial support at trial, having exhibits ready to go. OJ didn't get acquitted with one lawyer, right? It takes more than one person to litigate a case. More help with administrative work. Other paralegals would cut down on some of our senior paralegals on doing administrative work. More aid for our attorneys in our holistic representation. More aid in more timely data tracking. All of this would free up staff as well for more outreach and educational opportunity. I talk about this extra support because as the program grows, which we hope it will, administrative work will grow as well. And paralegal support will become much more important. Because of Missouri state eviction laws, cases move extremely quickly and our attorneys need help to work a case up for trial in that short amount of time. Full actual representation requires paralegal and social work support to be successful. Our social workers often assist with obtaining rental assistance and other resources that can help our clients pay off judgments, raise security levels, and move forward with their lives. I'd like to talk about the successes of the program, the actual numbers of clients we serve. We most recently submitted our September report, which is 14 months into the program. On that report, we have 367 unduplicated client households at this time. These are new clients for our program, a new client for the Help STL City program. Of those 367, we have already closed 233 of those cases, and 134 of those are still in progress. Of those households that we have taken on as clients, that is 462 adults and 311 children that have been impacted by our work. 385 legal cases are what we've actually handled. So 367 is the amount of new clients we've taken into the program. Some of those clients have had multiple evictions filed against them. Some of those clients, we've closed their eviction case and their landlord filed another eviction against them. We rehoused them and their new landlord filed an eviction against them. So we have 385 legal cases that we've handled. 233 of those we've closed, 152 are still in progress. I skipped some of these, so I apologize. We've got our numbers here. We also talk about the legal information and referrals. We've got 1,189 people or households that have received information through our outreach. Where do the people that we represent live? Well, we provide direct legal assistance to households in 10 of the city's 14 wards. More than half, 56% of our clients reside in wards 1, 8, and 14. You can see below that over 3/4, 77% of our clients that concluded services reside in the city's top 10 zip codes for eviction filings. 63116, 63118, 63106 are our top offenders, 27, 27, and 25 evictions filed where we've represented clients from there. Those clients that we represent, primarily African American, primarily female, primarily have a child under the age of 18 in the home, and they are affected by poverty. 72% of the households that we've represented have incomes under 30% of the area median income. That is qualified as extremely low. Like I said, 83% of our cases, someone who is Black or African American, 74, someone who identifies as female, 41% of our cases have a child in the home under the age of 18. So this affects a wide variety of people. The outcomes that we get. Well, we have a couple that we can kind of talk about. Money saved. We get cases dismissed. Having the case dismissed means that there's no money judgment that's going to be issued by the court. We avoid default judgments against tenants. People call us sometimes because they need help, they need advice. Sometimes people call us because they're in the hospital and can't make their court dates. They try calling the court. They explain to the clerks and the judges that they can't make it because they're in the hospital, and quite often they find unsympathetic ears. So sometimes that's what we're doing, is showing up and making sure people don't get default judgments. Avoiding money judgments. 30% of our clients do not receive any assistance, any public assistance, and thus would be collectible under income garnishment. Even our clients who do receive assistance, food stamps, TANF, things like that, their income can still be garnished, their taxes can still be seized. These money judgments can be collected upon. Not only can they be collected upon, but they can ruin people's credit. So the amount we've saved through September of 2025 for our clients is $386,720.68. That's all money that could have been reported on their credit report. That's all money that could have been garnished from income, from tax returns, things like that. That's also likely money that would have left our community. Let's remember that. Most of our landlords are out of state. That's $386,000 that likely would have left our metro area, that wouldn't have been spent in our community, and would have caused city resources to have to be spent to make up the gap. We get our clients more time to move. We avoid sheriff's evictions. Anybody who's been evicted can tell you that they can be violent, intrusive, and traumatizing. Armed law enforcement officers will enter the home and physically remove anybody that's still in there when they come to execute an eviction. After those people are removed, the landlord or property manager will change the locks and change the keys. Any of your property that's left in there after that point, you can kiss goodbye. We used to have luck in negotiating reentry to get things like medicine, canes, wheelchairs. We're finding more and more that attorneys are advising their landlord clients to not allow that because there's a risk that they could damage property in there or do something. We help avoid homelessness, saving city resources. We help provide rental assistance to stay in the home. Through our social workers and other support staff, we apply for funds from third-party organizations. And let me be clear, the rental assistance that we can provide for our clients to help pay off judgments is in no way part of our budget for Right to Counsel. None of the money that we get paid for Right to Counsel goes towards direct rental assistance. We are scraping and scrounging for that in the community with city partners and other things to help our clients. Another measurable outcome is that our tenants actually feel empowered. They can assert their rights at the present, they can assert and know their rights in the future, and they can avoid red flags in properties and leases before even renting. Educating the public about their rights really helps prevent future problems. We have developed some online tools that we give out to most clients, including the Tenant Toolkit, an online encyclopedia, motenanthelp.org, which uses AI tools to help people fill out court documents they can file with the court. And then we do outreach events in the court table. Real quick, the changes after year one. I'd like to discuss what's working well. It's pretty simple. People that we represent have better outcomes. They get more time to stay in their homes. They can find different homes. They're saving money. And instead of throwing bad money after good and paying old landlords, we're able to help negotiate settlements and deals that can avoid that. What's not working well? Having to turn people away due to not enough funding. I open the line for assistance for people to call in and leave a message at 8:30 on Monday mornings. Typically, by lunch on Monday mornings, I have changed a away message to say, unfortunately, due to limited resources, we no longer provide services. It breaks my heart every Monday to do it. I call people back throughout the week to remind them to call back the following Monday at 8:30. But Sean and I only can take so many cases without ethically being overloaded, and that wouldn't serve any of the clients that we actually have. Difficult issues that we're facing in the future. Evictions are on the rise. Small property owners are being bought out by large out-of-state corporations. Inflation's up, healthcare costs up, food costs up. That means less money every month for our clients for rent and housing. A lot of our clients are on a fixed income, and that's not changing anytime soon. But housing costs are going up every month, every year. We've got clients who are still recovering from the tornado, and we're in for a particularly brutal winter this year with a vulnerable elderly population. Even though it sounds like we are going to be getting some funding and there are going to be some resources available for tornado relief, this is something that we were on the ground right away. People were calling us right afterwards, and it's still going on. So what does the future look like? Well, more money equals more staff, more services that we. I don't think it's rocket science to say what would help is to expand the program. But good news is that we are part of a nationwide trend. Other cities have right to counsel programs. We have states like Oregon, Nebraska, Maryland, Minnesota, and Connecticut that have passed right to counsel laws. We have cities like New York City, Los Angeles, Denver. We have Kansas City, Detroit, Cleveland, Philadelphia who have passed right to counsel laws. We're in good company. We can fix the power imbalance that we have that's inherent in our state laws. We can help our clients avoid large money judgments that follow them. So I've heard the number 2.5 million. I don't want to say that would fully fund the program, but we would have a better funded program. 2.5 million would allow a program to expand to over a dozen attorneys and support. It would also allow a program to ramp up the cases they take and get much closer to serving the needs of all the citizens of the city of St. Louis. So thank you, and I'd like to invite my colleague Sean up.
Well, thank you to the HUD's committee for having this meeting. My name is Sean Caruso. I'm an attorney in the housing program. I'm one of the 2 attorneys that's funded basically under the Right to Counsel program. I've been practicing law for 10 years, and being an advocate for those that are less fortunate and who cannot advocate for themselves is absolutely my highest calling. It's a blessing to do this, and it's a privilege to be here to speak about it. This is my life, and this is the life of people every day in this city. I think in order to discuss the necessity of an eviction defense fund, it's necessary to understand the eviction process here in the city. Virtually every eviction case takes place in 2 courtrooms just a block down from you. The majority of these cases are filed by bulk filing attorneys. These attorneys have special privileges that allow them to file eviction cases en masse. They file hundreds of cases against our neighbors each month. And with this many court filings, errors are commonplace, and they get overlooked by the court. If a tenant misses court, as you've heard, they automatically lose. If they make it to court, the other side pressures them into signing a consent judgment, waiving their opportunity to be heard at trial and signing away their right to live in their own home. Just one signature. If they do make it to trial, but they were not a savvy enough litigant to know to plead defenses beforehand, they can be prohibited from making statements like, "Your Honor, I know I'm behind on rent, but it's because me and my baby were in a hotel for 4 months in December because we had no heat." If they properly plead defenses, they may still fail to introduce vital evidence because of hearsay rules and other evidence rules. The deck is absolutely stacked against tenants, and the process functions essentially like an assembly wheel for evictions, or assembly line for evictions. And it's no wonder our shelters are full. That's the process, and I'll show you. You come every single day. It is appalling, and it affects my mental health doing this job, just as it affects the mental health of the people that are experiencing this system. And if you think there's some sort of justice out there that's stopping that it's a fair process, you're just absolutely kidding. But here's why I think the Eviction Defense Fund, like the Right to Counsel program, is vital to any major city. The reason that there are so many vehicles with expired tags, and the reason landlords charge excessive rent and illegal fees while providing substandard housing is the same. They think they can get away with it, and often they can. Eviction court is where landlord practices are put under a microscope. The same morning as my previous testimony before the boards of estimates and apportionments, I had a trial where a landlord had no occupancy permit. He had received all the violation letters from the city. He was still demanding rent for his condemned unit because he thought he could get away with it. The funding for eviction defense attorneys puts bad landlord practices under a microscope. It creates a fair playing field for good landlords, and it helps set the standard for a decent, safe rental housing market, which directly impacts the ability of our citizens and our neighbors to maintain the health and safety of their families and contribute to our society. We're getting out of time. I had a few good examples. I'm going to keep it to 2. Number 1, I watched you guys' meetings when you were passing this bill. I think the number 1 criticism was, what about the landlords? It's not fair to them. I'm going to tell you something. Every good landlord and every good attorney loves when I'm on the case. It makes things easier. It makes it smoother. These tenants understand now. They're less disruptive. They're able to participate in this system because they know what's going on, because they have a trusted confidant. They have an advocate. Judges are thrilled that I step in and make sure things are done properly. So if you worry about the landlords, you're worried about the bad landlords, because the good ones are thrilled to see me. One case I want to talk to you about, and you actually heard from her a little bit today. I gave some counsel and advice in January this year. She came to me, she was nervous, she was experiencing the case for a little while already, and they were keeping it going every month and charging money from her. And she was getting nervous. She called us. I looked over her information. I looked at her lease. I said, here's what you rightfully owe this amount probably. Go offer to pay this, and you'll be good to go. This is the law. Pay and stay is a law we have in the state. You should be set. She called me in, I think, July. Said, Mr. Caruso, I need your help. I don't know what's going on. I'm still in court. They're taking my money. The judge won't listen to me. I don't know what's happening. So I extended that to full representation. I contacted the landlord's attorney. I said, listen, you're doing this wrong. This isn't right. He said, well, I've got this piece of paper that says she owes this money. Landlord wants her and her kids out. They want to kick them out. I said, well, we're done with this shit. We set this for trial. We had trial, and that landlord got up bold. Look, here's a piece of paper with numbers and charges. They owe us money. Trial did not go well when I cross-examined them. They asked for leave of the court to amend their ledger. The thing that they said under oath, here's why we're going to put this family out on the street. They amended that 2 days later and said, we owe that family over $4,000. That will never happen if these people don't have representation. And that is the beauty of this program. And I think that that landlord learned a lesson. And hopefully they're not going to do that again. And I think that is the beauty of this program, that it provides a better standard for the city as a whole. Thank you.
Well, I've made it back. Short though. All right. Good evening, everyone, for about the third time tonight. My name's Lee Camp. I'm an attorney with Arch City Defenders. I manage our housing and civil advocacy team. I manage 4 attorneys that do tenant work every day. We represent tenants in and out of the courts, sometimes on the defense side if they're being evicted. Sometimes we sue landlords, property owners, banks, all those things. I'm not here to really talk to you about that tonight. I'm here to talk to you in my role co-authoring this legislation. Along with Christine and Gracia in the past, we worked on this. I can remember it was on my wedding anniversary 3 years ago that we worked on this. And really, I think you set the tone appropriate this evening, Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, when you said we need to do some redirection. And I think that's right. I think we need to redirect quite a few things because you hear the good that a Right to Counsel program can do. You also hear the discontent in this community. They are tired of not having access to what they demanded down here years ago in a Right to Counsel program and what has been delivered really on the other end. And so I want to maybe point out a few places of where we've deviated from what the law says, but also redirect us on what we can do to fix this thing at this point. I think, of course, some of that starts with budget priorities. This law, as has been belabored this evening, requires an annual funding source. It required an annual funding source once the initial ARPA allocation was made. That has not happened. So we're still operating in our second fiscal year after passing this bill without any sort of dedicated funding source. And of course, it's not the legislative branch's job to reallocate this each year. The city should be allocating this money. And the coordinator for this program actually has a lawful mandate to hear the reflections of the attorneys that are doing this work and to put together a budget proposal, publish it to the director, to make a budget request that fits the need of this program. Another place that we absolutely have to redirect is on calling this a pilot program. I've heard it called a pilot program by multiple layers of city leadership. I haven't heard much out of this mayor's office other than some campaign flyers around the Right to Counsel program. I heard it called a pilot by the previous mayor's administration. I've heard it called a pilot by many of your colleagues, and this is not a pilot program. This was a law that we passed that demanded, that called for a scaling up of services over 4 years after we passed this. We were initially designed to hit 25% of the COVID eviction era filing, so a 4,500 number cap. You've heard tonight, over 5,000. We're on projection to have over 6,300 evictions in the city of St. Louis this year. So even our conservative estimates, just to honestly persuade this city that we needed this program, still won't be enough. But we have to at least try to achieve what we set out to do in the first place. We're supposed to hit 25% of those filings year one, 50 year two, 75 year three, be at 100% in year four. We've allocated no additional funding to do that. We are essentially asking a service provider who's contracted to do this to bank on future funding right now, to go out and recruit new attorneys, to secure office space for these individuals, the tech that come with it. You've just heard all the things that are associated with running a program like this. How in the world could that be a reasonable ask to a nonprofit entity when we, the city, are not following the law? We have no plan in place to actually scale this program up. One of the other fundamental requirements of this law was within 120 days of the hiring of a coordinator. It took over a year in September of 2024 to even get a coordinator hired after this law passed in July 23. That job was supposed to be posted, by the way, 60 days after the law was signed. That did not happen. Once we finally got one, that was months into the contract for service provision so that we could just get the program rolling. Well, the problem is we never actually set it up for success. And so we really need to redirect all the way back to that point and see what we have to do now to deliver on the promises we made years ago. Those include things like working with the providers, doing outreach to community groups. You've heard tonight, there's been no outreach around this Right to Counsel program. I'm in the court as well. I'm across the street frequently. I've been there once a week, every week this month. I've never seen anyone from DHS in there giving out information about the Right to Counsel program. And honestly, at its funding threshold right now, people wouldn't be able to access it even if they were in the courthouse at that point. So we've done no outreach. We've engaged with no partners. We have no plan. The plan was supposed to be in place to scale this program up, to properly budget, to hire and recruit individuals that would come to this city, do the work that our city residents have asked for. And in no way do I want to discredit the work, the hard work that is going on every day by my colleagues who just testified. This is hard work. As Sean mentioned, it is emotional. I've been doing this for 11 years. It's absolutely taken a toll on me. They do this every day in and out, live in those courtrooms. I see them get yelled at by their adversaries, and I see them smile in success when they walk someone out of those courtrooms. I think that's very important. They're giving dignity to residents here that demanded it, and they have a right to it. I also want to redirect our language too. I know at times we don't refer to this as a Right to Counsel program. I remember about 50 people in January of 2023 demanding that they have a right to an attorney if they had to go through this. And I think it's even important that we use that language correctly around this. I'm very aware of the time, so I'm trying to truncate these notes down for the evening. I do want to point out next year, on that 75% number, we are supposed to serve in the next fiscal year, so 26, 27, 3,375 households under this program. There is absolutely no way, if there's no funding mechanism in place, that we're going to come close to that. In fact, it sounds more to me like the funding is out the door, and potentially this program is at a crisis point. Without true funding allocation, without true leadership from the executive, right? This is in the mayor's office now to deliver on this. They should be giving you a budget. They should have the budget ready on this. They should be having these conversations. They employ individuals to put this program together and make it work, and we are ready for that to happen. We can have the best orgs, we can have the best attorneys working all the time, but without the resources, they're not going to be able to do this work. And more importantly, while it may be inconvenient and potentially just crippling to a nonprofit, what about our community? if nonprofit entities are going to deal with those kind of problems, there's no way we are going to be able to deliver the services that this program promised 2 years ago. And I know all of you all were co-sponsors on this, care deeply about this, but tenants are tired. They are tired of hearing this. You know, I've again been doing it 11 years. 10 years ago, it was funding the Affordable Housing Trust Fund and the legal mandate to fund the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And that kind of, wavers away. Then it's rental assistance. Big, great, grand announcement over rental assistance programs as we go through the pandemic. Those programs took forever to actually get money into people's hands. And plenty of people were evicted along the way because we couldn't administer the program fast enough. The Right to Counsel program, I'm describing as a crisis at this point. And what are we going to do? We do not want to see, we being a resident of the city, I live in the 6th Ward, I work here, we don't want to see another promise that we're going to launch another program, that we're going to have another relief source for you. We want to see this one work. This is the one that gets energy. This is a packed hearing room tonight. There was a packed gallery out before this started for something that passed 2 years ago. And it seems like the city, when the train left the station, thought the train ran out of steam. I'm feeling different energy as I'm here tonight. And I think we need to find that spirit of creativity, and we need to work together to figure out a way to salvage this program before we have to start all over again, back from square one, and we know how hard that can be with legislation in this city. Happy to have conversations with anyone tonight, in the future, over these issues, and I thank you all again for co-sponsoring this in the first place and holding this hearing here tonight.
Thank you. Do any of you all have any questions for the lawyers before we get to DHS? Okay. All right. Oh, I'm sorry. One second.
I'm going to be just very quick. You guys made a lot of comments to having to turning people away because of a lack of funding. Do you have an idea of a number of how many people you've had to turn away or deny services to?
Well, that would be the actual providers under the program. So I'm with Arch City Defenders. We are not a contracted vendor for this program, and have not been one, and it's tough to even make a commitment that would be one in the shape that it's in right now, where the program is out of compliance, very much so with the law at this point. But I'll let Dan answer.
I can answer that. We don't keep track of that because of the way we throttle our intake to keep us from getting overloaded. When we turn on the away message, when we have got enough cases in for the week, it just encourages people not to leave a message and to call back the following Monday at 8. So people that do power through that and leave a message, we call back. Sometimes we do an intake with them. Sometimes we encourage them to call back on Monday at 8:30 because I still can review those voicemails throughout the week, but I don't keep track of those numbers
You know,
yet.
timeline-wise, about when you had to begin turning, when there began to be not enough funds to cover folks?
Well, I mean, I can tell you that in the first week, we turned that line off on Wednesday. As of if it was not the first week, it was the second week that we realized that if we don't throttle our intake in that way, we're going to overload our intake unit and our attorneys, I mean, within a week. So it was probably not 2 weeks into the program when we started having to do that.
Thank you.
Just going to give you a part two of that answer, if you don't mind. I'm pretty sure it's safe to say that there's no attorney providing more full representation in the city than I am. I'm in court a lot, and I talk to people a lot. And every month, I think it comes out where I tell Dan, hey, I can't take any more cases. Like I am overloaded. And I meet somebody in court, and they explain their situation, and I cannot turn away from that. And I have to tell my girlfriend, hey, I'm sorry, I was going to hang out with you tonight. I got briefings to do now. I cannot step away from this case. And there are still weekly cases I meet in person. I can't take them. I'm doing as much as I can, and I'm still painstakingly saying this is not wrong, is not right. Here's my advice to you, how you can best do it. But I cannot help those people that are physically in my face let alone who knows how people are calling us. They have nowhere to go. They have nobody to hear from. I hear tons of people that say, oh, I called legal services. I can't get through. I know, I'm sorry. We have so many calls. There are so many people that need help, and they can be helped. They're not all people that should be on the street. They're not people that are saying, I shouldn't have to pay my rent. They're people whose their basic essential services don't work in their home, and they're being charged late fees for rent. It's absolutely absurd, and the need is definitely there.
Thank you.
Thank you. To piggyback off of that, I guess, for the attorney, it seems like the city has only allocated $685 over the past 2 years. So I'm curious, with the demand being $2.5 million, which we continuously hear to the attorneys, what would that look like if the city were to allocate $2.5 million and support for clients and maybe being able to not turn down your girlfriend and spend time with quality? But what does that $2.5 million look like in the ability to do the work?
$2.5 million would look like a 15 attorney strong program.
And it'd be
Could you speak into the mic, please?
Sure, I'm sorry. I'll get a lot closer. 2.5 million would provide for a 15 attorney strong program. That would be 2 supervising attorneys who still take on cases and administrative cases. That would be 13 additional attorneys on top of Sean and I that could be hired and trained. That would include additional support staff, I believe an additional 1.5/ whatever the actual number is to bring it to 2 paralegals. That would be 1 full-time intake worker that could answer the phone all week, or at least return calls, or at least do intake more than Monday for 3 hours. It would be a strong unit of, over 15 people.
And can you break down what is the unit now? So that 2.5 can get you 15 various positions. What are you guys working with now?
Sure. 2.5 million gets you 15 attorneys, as well as support staff. The 685,000 gets you myself and Sean, and an amalgamation of another 0.5 attorney, and it gets you less than half of a person to support us. 0.43, I think, of a support staff. Or administrative work.
Gotcha. And I know me and Alderwoman Sonye serve on budget. I didn't even know we can go below 0.5 and FTEs or staff. I thought it was 0.5, but the fact that
Apparently. I didn't know either. Yeah. Thank you.
Got it.
Alderman Aldridge, in response to your question, I want to note too, what we're working with in practice. So we provide a lot of counsel and advice that's very helpful. I'm an advocate. I really believe what is best for this program is we're in court representing these people in their court cases. And that's litigation. And litigation takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of filings, a lot of stuff that paralegals usually do at major firms. I'm doing most of it because our half a paralegal is opening and closing matters internally and doing reporting stuff. So I don't really have litigation support. So I can effectively represent fewer people because I'm doing work that I cannot off-charge on someone who would usually do that role in like a fully scoped, litigation firm. We have 2 paralegals in the program now. They work really hard. They're great, but it's not enough to meet the capacity of litigation that would almost begin to help in the city right now.
Gotcha.
Before you step away, Mr. Crusoe, the tenant that you helped earlier this year and they actually ended up getting money back, how did they find out about? How did they get connected to you?
They reached out to me. She probably got the letter from the Department of Human Services that goes out to every person being sued for eviction.
Okay, thank you.
So to go back to that, if a person received an eviction letter, you send the Department of Human Services send the letter out?
Yeah, so I think in your packet, spreadsheet that shows like the costs and the number of letters sent every month. And that is helpful too, as far as like the need. It mostly tracks the number of cases filed. I'm not sure where the director within the Department of Human Services gets that numbers, but 400 is the lowest number. It typically is about 500 to 600 letters they send out every month, mailing to people who are experiencing eviction.
And maybe I'm jumping the gun because I know we're going to have them come up. Can you talk about, from the legal standpoint, and I know the work that you guys do, I think I have a resident here in the audience that is thankful for the work that you guys do that have been able to help. But can you talk a little bit about the relationship or the collaboration between you all and DHS? So I think we have a clear...
Yeah, that's for Dan. I'm in court.
Okay.
That's all I do.
Okay.
So I'll speak on that a little bit, and it goes back to the other question about how people find out about us. Is the ordinance required that that landlords notify tenants facing eviction about the right to counsel program? The city, under the ordinance, I believe, is required to furnish those documents and information for landlords to send out to tenants. When this program got started and the contract got started and we worked with DHS, we kind of came to the conclusion that we didn't trust landlords to do that. The city has, because they were the ones who would have to furnish those materials and information in the first place, decided to put that with DHS to go ahead and send out that notice themselves instead of putting that onus on the landlords. So currently it is the city and DHS who gets court records from the court administrator here in the city. They take out duplicates, non-housing law cases, things like that, and then we'll send notice to people. Is it confusing sometimes? Yes. People call and are unsure of who sent the letter, of what the letter says, of why they're calling. But ultimately, if they call and we can provide services, they're going to end up better than if they never got that letter and if they didn't find out about it. That letter is to really satisfy the requirement of the ordinance to furnish the information to tenants facing eviction about the right to counsel program. And that seemed to be the most efficient way of doing it, is to bypass the landlords, to work with the court system and to send that out directly through DHS.
So there is when it comes to the eviction processes, as on the legal side, the way that it's set up now, it seems to be working for us. Maybe the collaboration with you all and DHS of sending like those letters out to people that are evicted because you don't trust the landlord, that process seems to be working.
Yeah, I don't think it's a perfect process. It can definitely be tweaked. We can definitely change the letter. But recently we changed phone systems and had a new hotline. I was able to call Ms. Jackson, Edna, over at Department of Human Services, and they changed that for the next round of letters that went out. Had our new hotline on it right away.
Gotcha.
So yeah, it's working. Is it perfect? No. But it is allowing a lot of the people who are getting summons to court to also know that there's something out there to call. Whether or not they're getting through to us is another question.
Gotcha. That's helpful. Thank you.
I just want to confirm, are you saying the last speaker, attorney, you said that you only have a part-time worker for 3 hours on Monday? I mean, an intake worker for 3 hours on Mondays right now? Did someone spoke to that?
No, that's just typically when all our intake cases come in, because we open up because I open the line at 8:30 on Monday morning. And by the time we get to 8 to 12 intake cases that have come in, that we have to give to myself, to Sean, and then find for the other ones, we turn the line to say, unfortunately, due to unlimited resources, we are no longer accepting cases.
Understood. Thank you.
All right. Now we'll call up Deputy Director and your staff from the Department of Human Services. You want to announce, and did you have a presentation or you?
No.
Okay.
I don't. Valerie Russell, Deputy Director, Department of Human Services. I want to thank the Board of Aldermen for asking that last question about how the Department of Human Services is working in collaboration with the Legal Services of Eastern Missouri on this project. When the project was initially funded at a rate of $285,000, the Department of Human Services, with the assistance of the Jones administration, got permission to utilize funds that we had been appropriated for housing stabilization, took funds from that and added the 400,000 to make sure that we could get this project started. In addition, the role of the program coordinator is not funded through anything related to this particular project. We have taken that on in our own table of organization, so it would be permanently funded. And we've added another position that was already within our department to assist in that process. Every month, we receive the court eviction docket for the upcoming month. We have someone go through that list, as Dan indicated, and retrieve those names that are legitimately going to be going to the eviction docket that month. And the packet that's in your system, in the envelope that I gave you, shows you the information that is provided to every resident that is listed on that eviction docket. We receive calls just as Legal Services of Eastern Missouri does. The phone number for Human Services is on that letter. The staff who are working in conjunction with this project assist individuals who decide they want to try to file on their own. They utilize the handbook that you see, which is a production of Legal Services of Eastern Missouri. Our department pays for the duplication of that document so that we could send it out to everyone. The information that is received by those residents, yes, it's difficult sometimes for them to interpret, but the staff takes the phone calls that come to our department. They have individuals who come in on a walk-in basis to show us the eviction letters. The staff works with them so that they understand. When individuals can't reach Legal Services for whatever reason through the phone, or their own system doesn't allow them to take calls when Legal Services tries to reach them, they call our office to meet with the staff. The services that this coordinator and the other staff member who we've assigned, they are in the court on a weekly basis. If not every court date, every docket, they are there. They assist with the court table. They are going out to people's homes to assist them with other things. I agree that there has not been an opportunity at this point to work with the establishment of tenant councils. We will make sure that that is going to occur. However, I have to disagree with statements that have been made that there has been nothing that has been done by the Department of Human Services and in the role of the program coordinator for this particular project. If you have any questions, I'll answer them.
So I did have some questions. Is the coordinator here?
She is.
Okay.
Edna Jackson.
Oh, okay. Can you answer? Are you available for some questions or?
She can answer or I can.
Okay. Hi, how you doing? Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
Edna Jackson. I'm the program coordinator.
Speaking, there we go.
My name is Edna Jackson. I'm the program coordinator for the health program for the city of St. Louis.
Nice to meet you. So I'm glad we have this opportunity then, right? Especially if we're saying that this is what I was talking about when there's some ways for us to make some course correction and see how we can help. So just in your role, because this is solely the role that you play is in this program, right? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Can you just talk about what the day-to-day, what that activity is and what the engagement is?
Well, to just kind of piggyback. To kind of piggyback on what Dan said, when they open up the phone line or people on the eviction list, we send out those letters that you see. My coworker and I, Kathy, we work tirelessly because we send out anywhere between 500 to 600 a month. So we're working on it every day, folding letters, putting them in the envelopes. So when they call the hotline, and then they reach the capacity of however many people that they can do for that week, we start to get a lot of those calls. And what we've learned is that we begin to educate the people that are calling us, letting them know that they can call back on Monday at 8:30. One of the things that we began to notice is that they were asking us questions that I wasn't quite sure how to answer. So I did go to Dan and ask him what was legal advice and what wasn't. What is not legal advice is they can ask for a continuance. We do tell them that. I cannot tell them if they can talk to their landlord or their landlord's attorney, but I do let them know that their landlord's attorney is not their attorney. And so we do try to let them know what to do and what not to do, and let them know we're there to advocate for them as best that we can.
And then when you said that you talked to Dan about that, and I heard Ms. Russell, Deputy Director Russell, say that you're in the courtroom. Can you talk about what that looks like?
Well, when we initially started going down to the courthouse, we were going every day, but then we found that there were 2 days a week, which is on Mondays and Fridays. A lot of the stuff that went on in court did not directly deal with the evictions. So we utilize that time in the office. So typically we go down on Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. What I found was I was approaching people. I wanted to make sure that the court table was there, ask questions, ask me questions, but what I found was I couldn't tell a landlord from a tenant. That's what I found. So when I was approaching people, I was approaching landlords and tenants. So now when people call, we tell them to look for us, that we are in the courtroom. There has been a couple of weeks earlier this month, we did not make it because of the trial that was going on. Some things were canceled. But as a rule, we do go down 3 days a week. We stay down there. We're always there for the first call, and we're always very visible.
That's helpful, because then that speaks to what the attempt, rather, at engagement. And so what you're saying is your engagement has happened in the courtrooms, but not necessarily with the groups and the community organizations and things.
I have gone to weekend all hands on deck events. I have a table set up. I bring books. I'm there. I'm visible.
Mm-hmm.
We have gone out. We've had clients come into the office. We work with them when they come into the office. We've gone out to clients' homes. We've gone out to different apartment complexes that have vacancies and picked up applications. We've taken them to the clients that are being evicted, that may have some issues in finding a place to stay. So we're trying to help them do that. We let them know about rental assistance in the area, and as much as we can to help keep them housed.
Mm-hmm. And just for clarity for people that may be listening in the room, the all hands on decks, those are city sponsored events. Usually the mayor's administration calls those, right? They have them in they've had them in different areas. I know they have one down in Red Isle Point.
I have tried to link with, I believe it was an organization. I sent a few emails. I just never got a response back.
Okay. Well, this is this is what we wanted to be here for, to see how where we can fill these gaps in. So, because in the ordinance, I do want to, reference that in the ordinance, a lot of this work that we asking about doing is not just it's in the ordinance, right? It was mentioned earlier that this is law. This is not what we want to think about doing. Is what we know we want to do and how we want to build capacity. I want to ask you a few more questions, Ms. Sorry, unless you had somebody else you want to answer. Is this your team?
Be able to answer some of those questions as well.
Okay. So now I just ask you straight up. I mean, flat out. Then, what in your role? What do you see as the challenges? What do you see? How do you see that somebody can advocate and help you to be better resourced or build capacity in the work that you're doing?
I'm really going to let Ms. Russell answer that. I think she knows a little bit more about. I mean, I can tell you what I think as far as, and I agree.
Yeah, because you do the work.
I agree that we definitely need more funding. I do agree with that. I think one of the biggest hindrance that Kathy and I have, and Kathy's sitting over there, my coworker, is that we really work hard once we get that list with everybody's name on it that's going through an eviction. And then we are prepared for when those calls come in. I think it would be helpful if we could get that list a little sooner. You know, sometimes we get it and have a week, but sometimes we only have a few days.
Now let's talk about that real quick before you sit down. Do you get the list from who? And is there someone we can help to build that, change that date and that timing on that?
It comes from the court, and I'll let Ms.
There's
Russell
nothing.
Respond to that.
As I indicated earlier, we forged a relationship with a few of the court representatives. They send us the document, and we have it reconfigured for a mail merge so that we can do what we need to do on our end. Typically, we get that document the last week of the month or the upcoming month. There have been a few occasions where we didn't get the list until the first week of the coming month. But for all intents and purposes, I believe the courts are in fact doing what they can to make sure we know who's on the docket. We have the packets ready to go. So once we get that list, they're just putting labels on at this point in time, and it goes out within a day.
Okay. And then one of the other things that I know I'm reading from the actual language of the bill, what I've been referencing, one of the actions that your role or the department's role takes is to help tenants to even form and maintain tenant unions and organizations. Do you feel like you all have been able to do that, or?
We have not.
Okay. Is there a reason why, or something that we could support?
I think that there is always something that we can get assistance with to help support that. The role of the Department of Human Services has been expanded upon over the last 2 years to assist with a variety of projects. And so making a determination on what takes priority over another has not necessarily been the easiest thing to do. But with COVID and then ARPA and now with the tornado and having people go through the processes that they have to sustain services from the federal government and from the state has been a big push of our department. In terms of the tenant organization, as I had indicated earlier, no, that has not been something that we've implemented at this point.
And I understand what you just said, but I guess my pushback on that would be if this is this department, this is this person's only job. They don't have to choose between what the different priorities are and the work that's being done in the department. I'm being this is how I'm looking at it, unless you tell me something different. Like this person, if this is the person's only job and their only work that they have to do, then why would it be a factor that they have to choose, that the department has to choose?
During the period of time that we've had the coordinator in place, there have been other tasks that have been assigned to assist those individuals who are facing eviction. We have had CDBG rental assistance programs that have been operated during that period of time. We received from Legal Services of Eastern Missouri and other organizations the names of individuals who were facing eviction so that they can be assisted with the rental assistance. The coordinator has assisted with that process. There are individuals right now who are impacted by the tornado who need individuals to continue to do outreach with them. And because our department assists individuals who are seniors and veterans and others, homeless individuals, this coordinator has been asked to assist with the numerous calls to those residents to find out where they are. I'm not making an excuse. I'm just indicating that there have been other tasks that have been involved with the coordinator, all related to housing stability.
And so what that sounds like to me, and wrong, is that is there some staffing capacity
within the department?
Within the department as a whole.
Yes.
So in order to fill in those gaps here, not just in the most current with the tornado relief, but anything else prior to that, you've had to pull this person outside of the role that they were hired to do the other work.
We have added additional tasks to her plate.
So what challenges do you think that, or what ways do you think that we as the board can assist? Or we all know the funding, we are clear on the funding piece, but is there other ways that you think that we can advocate or work with you? What challenges do you see then as the deputy director of the program and its success?
I appreciate that question, but I don't know that I am prepared right now to give you specific information.
Ms. Russell, could you speak into the mic a little more? They can't hear you on YouTube.
Okay. I said I appreciate that question, but I don't know that I'm prepared at this moment to indicate specifically what we can ask the board to assist us with. I would welcome a conversation and a general meeting to include both our staff, LSEM, and some of the other partners within the community to see where we can focus that attention.
Okay. Did you have any questions?
Yeah. Thank you, Deputy Director, for being here. I am going to piggyback on that last question because I think the Board of Aldermen was, first off, I appreciate what you do, and I appreciate the staff, and I appreciate all our city departments because I know we are understaffed, overworked, and underpaid. At the same time, I think the reason of having these committee hearings is I think sometimes people may feel like a little intimidated that they're talking to alders on the other side, but it's to try to figure out how we all can get to like a solution. And the chairwoman asked, you know, what can we do to help? And you said you wasn't prepared, but at the same time, you also said you guys are understaffed. So I am going to re-ask like that question. When it comes to this program, you have one coordinator for this program, which is
Ms. Jackson.
Ms. Jackson doing a lot of roles outside of just this role. Of course, this isn't the budget process, or you're not speaking, I guess, outside of Director Pearson. But I think it's important for us, even outside of having like a private meeting that we could have with you, myself, and alders and the department head, for the public to know what is helpful to ensure the success of this program, as there's been frustrations with this program and other programs like Impact Attendance Fund that has took a while to roll out, and which is not always on your department. There's a lot of, I think, the public may sometimes not know there's a lot of layers to processes from when the board passed and the mayor signed it and the enforcement. But I'm not, you know, it's the realness in me that I'd be remiss if I do not like double down and ask, what can we do to help? As you being the deputy director of this department and know the ins and outs of the department and know programs ins and out of what is necessary to, in a perfect world, if you could have the necessary resources and tools, what is it that would be successful for this program to be more successful? Not that we'll get it, but it gives, I think, us as alders an understanding of what we need to advocate for and not just hold these hearings and then walk away and just hear people, because we want to be able to support the department. We want to make sure that we're making sure the program happens. So I am going to re-ask, what is it that we could do from the Board of Aldermen to assist you to make sure that this is successful?
I appreciate you rephrasing that and asking me the question again. I want to indicate that I believe the types of recommendations that have been made here tonight to make this program more successful is to make certain that we have the funding to provide to the legal community, to provide the legal services to those individuals who need it. Our funds that we're using for a program coordinator are minuscule. The services and the expertise of the legal representatives and the other paralegals that they say that they are needed to help them needs to be funded. In terms of a restart, as Mr. Camp indicated, I agree that we need to look at the law and determine what and how we can carry this out. And again, I welcome that conversation. It has not necessarily been any intent to not carry out those projects, not carry out those functions. The determination that the Department of Human Services was doing nothing, I think, was an unfair determination, and that's why I came up to express that there are things being done. The process of getting landlords educated, yes, I think that the Board of Aldermen can assist the project as a whole and our department in general on how to get that information to landlords. They are not necessarily responsive. We've seen that not just with this particular project and listening to tenants who are having problems with landlords, but even finding out how to get to an individual landlord as opposed to someone who's a property manager and is not going to respond by phone. So there's a lot of layers to the process, and any information, any advice that we can get from organizations who have had the experience would be welcomed.
Gotcha. That was helpful to, I think, on this side, as I sit next, being the chair of the budget committee, you know, and we enter in budget session. And I know from the department side, those conversations are starting in January. It's, and Alderwoman Tanya also sits on the budget of like what that looks like to, you know, this budget committee in the last several years have moved money around compared to other budget committees. So is this something that we from the budget committee need to be focusing on? Each department will come and say they need support from forestry and streets and such, but I think some of what you said was helpful to understand what we can do. Going to, when you say revisit the ordinance and look at how we educate landlords, are you able to like speak a little bit more into that? Is that us sending out the letter process where the landlord is not engaging with the tenants? Do those letters go to the tenants or they go to the landlords? What would, outside of having like a meeting, which I would love to have with myself and the sponsor of the bill, and I'm sure Alderwoman Sanye and yourself and some of the advocates to figure out, because when we pass legislation, we know it's not perfect. We always got to come retweak it and improve it, and you never get the apple or the bite of the apple right the first time. But what, I guess, challenges have you seen with the ordinance from your department that has been a challenge in this process?
I'll speak again to the dictate that we educate landlords or give them information that they should give their tenants. We have landlords that call our office after they find out that their tenant is going to get an attorney, and they question, well, what is this doing for me? Because they see it as an adversarial role. If they're ready to evict and their tenant now has an attorney. So it is explained to them that this individual has a right to an attorney. Getting that information to landlords who are predatory to make sure they know that the actions that they take can be litigated, and that this program is going to move forward and have more funding available so that there are more attorneys who are going to be assisting those neighbors, I think would be helpful as a communication tool to the general community and those landlords in general, because I don't believe they understand that their tenants have rights and their tenants have a voice. So again, there's an educational role that our department can play, but it's limited. And any assistance that we can get to those landlord groups, those other entities who are working with landlords right now to try to find units for those people who've been displaced by the tornado, is a good avenue for us to start as well. But it is not our department's role in general to start working on landlord-tenant issues, we have had to partner with SLDC and CDA to get into and find out that type of information, who these people are, what is the trigger point to get them to pay attention. So I indicated again, helping to educate the community about the fact that people have a right to have an attorney and to be present, and that they cannot discriminate against them, but at the same time, funding this project so that there are more attorneys who can assist the residents who are having problems.
And when these letters go out, they go out to the tenants, not the landlord.
They go out to the tenant. When we get the information from the court, most part, it doesn't have a landlord's information on there. It may have a property manager. I think we have asked if there was any way to find out who actually filed the suit, who the landlord was, and the court's not able to give us that information.
Okay. Kind of going back to some budget, a budget question. I think the coordinator, or maybe yourself, spoke that you guys get the information at the end of the month on who has been potentially sent from the courts evicted or in the process of eviction.
We get the information of who is going to.
You get the docket from the court at the end of the month.
Get the docket for the upcoming month.
So if it's January, you get it for no.
We'd get that hopefully at the last week in December. They've never given it to us sooner than the last week of the month prior to the next docket.
To know if somebody has will be in status for eviction.
Who has gotten a summons for an eviction.
Okay. And probably after you all received it, anything can change where I guess the docket could change as well, that maybe someone had went or could be in process of eviction. You only get it one time. Is there any other like notification?
We get it one time, and what you will see on that page that I shared on the number of letters that we mail out, and then the number of letters that are returned. A lot of those letters are returned because the person has already moved out, or the addressee is unknown, meaning that the court didn't give us the right address. There's a lot of variables that go on. I think that the period of time, and I'm going to be quite frank with you because the coordinator and the assistant will tell you that people don't open their mail. And if they do open the mail, sometimes it's after the court date. So what we've tried to do with that color envelope is not make it just white as something that they may ignore. We put all of the information in there along with the letter to let them know we're not there as an adversary, we're there to help them and to give us a call right away. So even though we get the docket from the court, we don't have any idea of whether or not, other than the fact that we can look at previous dockets and see that this case was there in a previous month and now it's being placed on the docket again, it's returning. But for the most part, there are people who are on the docket for the first time. If they don't open the letter, if they don't call us, if they can't get through to Legal Services of Eastern Missouri, then those are gaps.
And this may be a stretch of a question because I know you probably receive a lot from those dockets of people that are up for eviction, especially as housing prices continue to go up and rent goes up, it probably exceed. Do the coordinator, I hear the coordinator, and will be a twofold question. I know the coordinator goes to court. What is the purpose of the coordinator going to court if the lawyer is also going to court, or the lawyer? So the coordinator
make sure that individuals know, because some people come to court and they don't have a legal representation, and they
is the lawyers from the program not also in the courtroom?
They may be talking to someone at the court table. They may be meeting with a client in the back of the room. There are times where the program coordinator is just going up to people and saying, do you need assistance?
I'm just trying to figure out if the lawyers help the legal side
I have an answer.
Okay, let me finish.
Uh,
Let me finish. If the lawyer's there to help on the legal side, already in, and I think usually they sit right outside the courtroom with the table, what is the purpose of the coordinator spending time in the hallways, walking around, passing out brochures if the lawyer is already there?
Okay, according to Dan, and I think he left, they cannot advertise. They cannot walk up to people and advertise. I can. I can do that for them. They can see the people walk by if the people walk up to their table, but they can't say, hey, I'm an attorney, I'm here to represent you. If you need me, they can't do that.
And in your role, when you go to court Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, you're pointing people to the attorney?
Yes, I can point them to the table. I can tell them my role as the person that works for the city under the program and what their options are in the program, that the service is here for them, and that encourage them to utilize that service.
Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, what's usually your typical time that you're in the courtroom?
We usually get there right around 9. First call in the courtroom is at 9:30, so we have that 30-minute time, people getting off the elevator. We'll read the docket to see how many, cases are specifically for evictions.
Gotcha. The last question, I'll go to Alderwoman Sanye. How do y'all get the word out outside of, I'm thinking advertisement. How do you get the word out outside of the coordinator being in the courtroom and the docket information received? Because we know that mail can sometimes be a little slower.
Right now, the project is on the city's website. There's information about the project, how they can access services, the monthly reports that we receive from the Legal Services of Eastern Missouri are uploaded onto the website so that the community can find out how many cases were served, how many individuals, according to the statistics that Dan gave you, were assisted and in what capacity. No, we have not done any additional marketing, except that Ms. Jackson does go to community events to explain what this project is and distributes that information at those times as well.
Gotcha. Do y'all have a budget for marketing?
This is coming out of the Department of Human Services normal general revenue budget. Just
Do
as
the
all
Department of
the-
Human Services have a budget for
We
marketing?
do not.
Okay.
So we are paying for the mailings and those things from our normal 1010.
Gotcha. And to Ms. Jackson, if she need help with the connection with Hands on Deck, they usually tend to be very responsive when I reach out. So if you need a contact person, I can help you with that. Thank you. Thank you.
Can I just do a quick follow-up on that budget question? Because I know, again, as I'm just sitting going through the legislation, I know part of that was presenting a budget and an operating budget for the program through the director, or did you do that budget for this?
The budget for the
Right to Counsel program, just
Right
the
to
Right to
Counsel
Counsel.
program is currently operating in terms of the legal services contract on a 2-year contract, and those are ARPA dollars. So that
Maybe I said it wrong. Not the funding that's in place now, I'm proposed budgeting. When you create a budget and an operating plan for your department, like Director Jackson, I'm sorry, I want to make sure I got your title right. Is it director or?
Program coordinator.
Coordinator Jackson. So part of her role would be to create a budget. This is the operating to make this program work efficiently. And has that been done, or was you able to do one?
Currently, the development of the budgets is handled by Director Pearson and myself and those other divisions. In the January budget that we have to submit, we will be submitting a budget for the continuation or sustainment of this particular project. We will be looking at the recommendations that have been made and discussed in this meeting as well. Legal Services of Eastern Missouri has shared with us what they thought would be an appropriate amount, and I believe they explained that to you as well, and we will submit that. Because the project under ARPA ends, the funding ends in July of 2026.
Absolutely, which is what we know the urgency of having this conversation publicly was important now. Before Alderman Aldridge, I know he has one follow-up, but I do want to look at, and this might be a question for Jackson as well. It's only 10% of the referrals have come from in the report have come from the letters, and I hear you saying that the letters either come back. Sometimes people have already moved. What do you all see as another avenue for that, pathway for that, or even to build up to where it would be more successful?
I believe that marketing in areas where individuals might hear the information about the legal counsel, the right to counsel. My concern is marketing will generate those calls. Marketing will generate the expectation at this point in time, and the level of service is really not able to provide to all who are asking for services. But yes, I agree that additional marketing will help to educate individuals, and making certain that where there are tenant councils, that we educate them about the program. Our projects that deal with other populations such as conflict resolution, they talk about the right to counsel and other projects as well. But the marketing will help as long as we're not frustrating those individuals because we don't have the hours of an attorney to assist them.
Just honing in on that budget question really quick. There's not a line item for a right to counsel at the moment, are you saying?
There is not.
Okay. So per the legislation, is it just, the legislation, does it speaks to funding post the ARPA funds, that this is supposed to be continued at a certain funding?
As I indicated in the FY27 budget that will be submitted to the Budget Department, the Board of Aldermen, there will be a budget submitted.
I guess my question is, do we at the board need to solidify legislation to ensure that this is something that is post-ARPA funding, that we are going to establish this program in the city of St. Louis? Because it sounds like, from what you're saying, this was just an ARPA-funded program.
That's correct. And yes, I agree that the Board of Aldermen does need to look at where those funds might come from and establish it as an ongoing appropriation.
Okay. Do you think that need to be legislation?
I believe if it's not already in the current ordinance, that yes.
Okay. That's my question on the lead.
Vice Chair Sangay.
Mind if I jump in real fast? Or do you have more questions?
I haven't asked her yet, but you can go ahead if you're.
The people should always, get that.
I think he's talking to me.
I'm talking to everybody. So legal services, we are funded in part through federal funding too, so we have limitations. I can't just come talk to you guys, so I am thrilled to be here. I can't just come reach out to you when you don't invite me to come. So I wanted to chime back in. We're asking a lot of questions about the Department of Human Services, and I really appreciate you inquiring into that. I want you guys in your hearings, all three of you, I really appreciate the way you look into things, you ask questions, and you look for resolutions. I want to comment here. I think there's room for improvement for sure. I don't want us to get lost in the fact that this is a right to counsel program. The number one way to help people is counsel, and it's funding. It's funding, and I would encourage us not to get lost in the extra, goals of this bill, this law. The number one way to help people in the eviction courts, which is the main purpose of this law, get them an attorney, and you just got to pay an attorney. So there's a lot we can ask the Department of Human Resources, and I'm certainly happy to comment on that in future meetings. If you ever want to invite me back again, I will come to every invite you send to me. But if you want to help people, it's the funding.
Ms. Valerie, I'm always going to start by giving you your gratitude. I get to work with you on a number of issues, had many conversations with you. I find you, really helpful. Kind of in response to what was just said, though, I would disagree a little bit because I think our role as alders is to, we have to make sure that when we put programs into place, that departments are implementing them or we're passing legislation just for decorative purposes. So I do think that we have a duty to make sure that when things come up, if there's some disconnections between what was written on paper and the execution of that's our role to come in and have that conversation with departments. And I think that's, really highlighted in this situation because one of the things when I was just preparing for the hearing this evening look over is I was reading a line on the line that says on page 8, line 17, in addition to overseeing the administration of the ordinance, the program coordinator shall, and I really want to emphasize shall because that means that it is supposed to happen. It's not supposed to be optional. Work with designated community groups to engage and educate tenants and others about the program, including distribution of written information, assisting tenants to form and maintain tenant associations, referring to tenants to designated community groups. I think what I'm well aware of from working with you all is I know how understaffed you are and how overworked you are, and I know the amount of things you kind of have added to you all's department's plate with programs like Right to Counsel and Impacted Counsel, which we're all supporters of presently, but not necessarily giving you the staff and support to implement them. I think for me, something that I really want us to work on is getting to a point, especially with budget season coming up, is making sure that you all, and whatever we need to do, that you feel comfortable letting us know when you're having issues and when you're having, challenges, doing programs, doing things that we've done. I think in an ideal situation, it wouldn't be community groups or organizations letting us know about this disconnect. It would be the department that would be reaching out to us and telling us, hey, we have this shortage, we're having a struggle. I got a coordinator that's very overworked, that's having to do for several things. Maybe you guys need to consider adding another coordinator. Maybe there needs to be a revisiting of the legislation to see if a coordinator can be added to the expense of the program. But those are conversations that I do think we have to have. In an ideal world, we would be having we would be in such good relationship with each other that we would be able to have those conversations on an ongoing basis. To that end, I just wanted to double back to the point about the program coordinator costs not being covered in the allocation that happened to the program. Is that accurate?
That's accurate.
So does the legislation need to be revisited so that the cost of program coordinators can be included with allocations, or can you explain to me more about that disconnect?
The decision to make certain that we could cover the program coordinator on an ongoing basis was made when we had a vacancy of a program coordinator for a service that was now being provided through the Veterans Administration. So we utilized that program coordinator position to fill this program coordinator position specifically for the Right to Counsel project. That is an ongoing appropriation within our budget, and it will be there on an annual basis.
So would it be helpful implementation-wise as we get into budget season and we look into revisiting it? Would it be helpful for us to include, they said like 2.5 million would ideally cover 15 attorneys, would cover, so would it be helpful for us to also include a specific program coordinator for this program, or do you think that the structure you have it now where it is something else that a coordinator is supposed to happen overlapping?
The overlapping tasks that I mentioned earlier were specifically related to the types of, how do I put it, emergencies that were occurring in this city over the past year. So to have someone, particularly with the expertise of Ms. Jackson, she's health professional, she's had other experience, it was helpful to us to make certain that we could cover those things as well. I will not deny that to have a program coordinator built into the appropriation would be helpful. It would certainly be helpful if there were multiple individuals.
Thank you. My next question is just about, it was mentioned earlier that we send letters out to folks, and I know you mentioned sometimes they open their mail later. And I'm not sure who would be best to speak to this, but what has the relationship been between those letters reaching folks in enough time before their eviction progresses?
So when we get the court docket, correct me if I'm wrong, Edna, go on. Yeah, would you please? Because I don't have the exact date on that docket of when the court date is going to happen.
We need you to speak into the mic, Ms. Russell.
We don't have the information of when that person's court date is actually occurring. We just get the docket for the entire month. So the letter may go out, well, the letters do go out, but the court date may be that week that they receive the letter. It could be 4 weeks from then.
So, I mean, I could file a court case at the beginning of January and have my first summons date within the month of January. So we do have issues with that when it revolves in sending the letter and making sure people get it in enough time. Quite often, we're sending counsel and advice or only providing brief services to people because they call within 48 hours of their court date or trial date. And when people get a hold of us in that short amount of time, there's often very little we can do legally for them to prepare for that trial other than giving them advice on how to go themselves, to negotiate matters, file appeals, things like that. Sending out the letter was a great idea to market the program, but the marketing is so funneled into one particular group of people, the people that have had an eviction filed against them in court that have enough time to actually call us, that it's not really educating the rest of the people facing evictions here. There's no, like Valerie said, there's no money in the budget for marketing. There's no bus ads. There's no advertisements anywhere else. Things that cost money. There are things that we could do that the city could pass that don't cost money. We could require every property that gets city funds or gets subsidies from the city to post something about right to counsel at the property. There are things like that we could do because we have to educate the entire population around here about the program so that they're not calling the day before their trial. When they get a summons or get into hot water with their landlord or their conditions get really bad, there's often not enough time for them to do research to find out who can help them. What needs to happen is it needs to already be out there in the zeitgeist. It needs to be in there where they're hearing about it in their communities. If you look at our reports about where our referrals come from, I think the bulk of it come from former clients and from family members. The internet is a good one too, and then the letters go out as well, but it is an imperfect system the way the letters go out. But that imperfect system is to cover the fact that there was no money to advertise this program at all.
Along those lines, I wanted to clarify, is the piece that was mentioned earlier, that you're not allowed to go to folks in court directly and kind of advertise your services?
It's not technically correct. There were some pushback from plaintiffs' attorneys and private attorney groups on legal services soliciting in the courthouse. The opinion, my understanding now, is that we can't solicit in the courthouse because we don't get paid by our clients, not solicitation. So we can talk to people at the house.
This next question you might not be able to answer, and I'm totally open that we might not, that's the legislative process. We might need to work on this with my colleagues and with the departments. But I'm trying to figure out if there's a disconnection between the information reaching the person who's been charged with eviction or not. Do we, to your knowledge, I can't think of any state contradicting law and tried to do some research to see if I could find it. Is there something that prevents the Board of Aldermen, if I wanted to amend the legislation that was passed to say that at the same time that a summons is given, typically by a sheriff or whoever issues a summons of eviction court, the information of right to counsel needs to be dealt at that same time where that's dealt? And if you are not in position to answer that or speak to that and we need to have further conversation, that's fine. But I'm just trying to think of what we can to make sure, because obviously the courts are going to, with zealousness, make sure that residents are aware that they're going to be evicted. So is it appropriate to also ask that they include any information about the right to counsel program that is ordinance and is law?
I'm sure the clerk's office at the courthouse would have something to say about that, but I find that a pretty good idea. People have to be served with the lawsuit.
Right.
With a caveat to that, under eviction law in the state of Missouri, if you do not show up to court, it depends on what's going to happen, depends on what kind of service they have. If they just mailed you the posting or stuck it on your door, and you don't show up to court, their default judgment is for possession of the property. If they allege that they gave someone in the home personal service, whether it's someone over the age of 18 or whether the person itself, and they don't show up for court, the landlord at a default would get possession of the property and whatever money judgment they.
Okay, well, I'm just putting it on record. You'll hear from me. I want to talk to both of you all more about looking at how we can do, at least make sure that folks are getting information. I think it might make sense. I would imagine landlords want folks to be served at eviction. So I think if there's a way that we can put law and ordinance in there, we should look into that. So I'll just flag that for us to kind of discuss later.
Sure.
This one is for you, Ms. Valerie. Just along the lines that we've been discussing with staffing and pay and coming into budget season, we just did a disparity study, and I know that there's been several departments recommended by the administration to get raises with that study. Is the Department of Human Services, have you had any conversations? Are you aware if you all have been included in any of those conversations to look at raises or staff for your offices as we evaluate the disparity study, have budget conversations?
We have not been given that information at this point.
Okay. Okay, and then my last question for you is just around, there's also some information and legislation that asks that program outcomes kind of be published and made so that examples, information about the outcomes of the program, how many dismissals have happened, so on and so forth. Can you give me an update around that report or when that will be made available to the public, or if any conversations around making that information, publicly available and transparent is in the works?
Yes. As I indicated earlier, all of the monthly reports on the progress or lack thereof of this particular project are on the city's website. We received in the end of in October, the first year report from LSEM, and an annual report will be developed from there that will be distributed.
Okay, thank you.
All right, the only other thing I'll do is just echo the wanting to have a continued conversation about this to see how we can help work together on that. And then the other thing, I was corrected, and I'm big on not putting the good information out, that All Hands on Deck event that Ms. Jackson has been involved in is not a city event. It's a separate non-for-profit organization that Amir Tibbs organizes and that's what it's called, All Hands on Deck. So if you're interested in working in that program, and I just want to make sure I didn't put that false information out about it being a city program. So thank you for engaging in that. I think I assumed it was because we have the flyers all up all over City Hall a lot of times in this things. Okay. All right. Well, thank you all. Thank you everyone for taking the time to be here. Again, this is the only part of the legislative process down here at the Board of Aldermen where we get to hear directly from the public, where we get to capture it and then have it shared and have it as a part to help us guide and navigate our advocacy to make sure that these programs and these opportunities and these resources that we believe in and fight for are able to be successful. So again, I appreciate you all taking the time out. And with that, I'll see if there are any closing. Okay. Let's see. We need to excuse Alderman Browning and Alderwoman Schweitzer. Oh, go ahead.
Maybe I was shaking my head a different way. First off, I want to thank the chairwoman because I know, not only working on this legislation, well, I know Ingracia worked on it, but I know there's something that when it comes to this meeting, you work really quickly with the advocates to make sure that we have this happen so that it does happen. And I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I want to thank not the advocates, but the organizers that have been doing the work to make this happen and continue to put this on the forefront, the legal side of folks that are doing the work on a day-to-day basis. I know the president's office have reached out to alders to come and sit in on housing court. I personally haven't taken it up, but I will make sure I take that up and do my part so I actually can see it and not just talk about it. but see it firsthand. And I know how critical this program is. Before being elected in my Jimmy John's days, I came home from work one day when my partner lost her job and had an eviction on my door. And when you receive something like that, you freak out. I was working at Jimmy John's, not making a little bit of nothing. And I stayed at City View, not too far from here. And I did not pay my rent like right on time because I just didn't have the money after my partner lost her job. And life hits. And my mom always used to say, we all could be one paycheck away from being unhoused, being evicted. And I know there's residents that have shared stories, testimony today, and have continued to share testimony on the importance of what those scary moments could look like when you get that letter on your door. And these landlords have big money against tenants who are already scraping to get by. So for the folks that are fighting for this issue, thank you. And I just want to take just a few moments, Madam Chair, just to read something to make it very clear so this is public. So to the City of St. Louis, Mayor, Board President, Board of Aldermen, and Comptroller, I won't read the whole thing. We all received a very, I think, important piece of email and paper and demand from folks to the board and to the powers that be in the halls of City Hall to know why this is important. And it says, we, the undersigned organizations, demand at least $2.5 million annual for the Right to Counsel program to protect our most at-risk neighbors. To meet its promise, the City of St. Louis must do several things. Commit to a permanent and funding source so attorneys can meet the targeted caseload in Ordinance 71694. Enforce the law that requires landlords to tell tenants they have a right to an attorney and how to get one every time they serve an eviction notice. Audit and enforce the responsibilities of the program coordinator to make sure they meet their legal obligations, which I know Alderwoman just talked about the shall language, which is anytime you do legislation is important, a difference between shall and may, to educate tenants about the program, share information about it with tenants and property owners, help tenants form powerful tenant associations, and refer tenants to direct service organizations which can help in crisis. Publish data about the successes and failure of the program so that we, especially as legislators, know that how we can continue to be successful over this. We know that the tornado ripped through various neighborhoods where thousands of our neighbors were already caught in a housing and eviction crisis. The recovery lag and eviction surge is coming and the winter is here. The city must meet the moment by meeting its obligation under the law. After promising a fully funded and fully functional eviction defense program years ago, it is now time to lead and act with urgency. We ask the Board of Aldermen, the Mayor, and the President's office to join our colleagues, which is, they put in the letter, Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, Alderwoman Sonia, and Alderman Rasheen Aldridge, in backing this demand, fully fund Right to Counsel. And I want to thank Arch City Defenders, Action St. Louis, Tenants Transforming Greater St. Louis, Freedom Community Center, Missouri Jobs of Justice, Missouri Worker Center, Empower Missouri, Faith for Justice, Freedom Arts and Education Center, Abortion Action Missouri, Missouri Justice Coalition, Dutchtown South Community Corporation, Earth Day 365, St. Louis Mutual Aid, the Center for Growing Justice, and We the Tenants for continuing to organize, continuing to do the work, and continuing to hold us all accountable, even the ones that are up here supporting. But when we know, or when we can do better, we do appreciate it, because only way we are successful is if we as electeds work hand in hand with the organizers and also with our departments to make sure that this actually is successful. So thank you all for the work, and thank the departments for being here. Thank everybody for being here. And I look forward to figuring out how we actually fully fund Right to Counsel with $2.5 million on an annual basis.
It's late. I don't want to keep us. I just thank everybody who came out tonight. Big shout out to the organizers. I just thank everyone for coming out and participating tonight. I think we've all kind of seen the outcomes and impacts of that. And so I just want to make sure I go on the record to make the same commitment that Alderman Aldridge did, that I'm absolutely looking forward to being a part of conversations about sustainable funding, and also any improvements that we might need to make to the legislation to make the operational implementation piece of it a bit more feasible for all of the parties involved.
With that, we'll excuse Alderman Browning and Alderwoman Schweitzer for necessary absence.
Second.
It was moved by Alderman Aldridge and seconded by Vice Chair Sanye. I'm going to call for previous roll. So we have excused them, and now I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Vice Chair Sanye and seconded by Alderman Aldridge that we adjourn. We are adjourned. Everyone have a good night.